I'd like to call to order the Morris Township Board of Adjustment meeting for December 9th, 2024. The legal notice required by the Open Public Meetings Act has been satisfied, and a statement certifying same will be executed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Santiago, roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Ms. Simmons,
Here.
Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Ms. Polara, Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Oler,
Here.
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
and I'm Sonia Santiago here.
Okay, the first matter is a resolution on BA-15-24. Mr. Oler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a memorializing resolution with respect to the application filed by Italia Duran and Javier Quinto, who applied to the board for permission to modify an existing non-conforming dwelling by constructing a second-story addition, which required variances for the side yard setback, combined side yard, and the rear yard setback for the expansion of a non-conforming structure. For the reasons set forth in the resolution, the application was conditionally granted with our standard conditions, as well as a condition indicating that the existing garage may remain in its current location. However, upon replacement, it shall be relocated to a permitted area, or the property owner shall return to the board for any appropriate variance relief.
Okay. Board members, any comments on the proposed resolution? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Ms. Santiago, roll call, please.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons? Yes. Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford?
Yes.
So moved.
Okay. Moving on to the public hearings. The first one is BA-13-24, Masterson. Ms. Santiago.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is BA-13-24, Amy and Matthew Masterson, Block 3911, Lot 17, 100 Burnham Parkway, in the RA-15 zone for Section C. Applicant proposes the construction of a two-car garage, creating a side yard setback of 1.4 feet where 20 feet is required, a rear yard setback of 5.2 feet where 25 feet is required, and a combined side yard setback of 8.1 feet where 50 feet is required.
Okay, appearance, please.
Matt Masterson, applicant.
Okay, and,
Jeffrey Gogan, architect and
Thank
planner.
okay, thank you, Ms.
Okay, would you both please stand, raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
All right, who's going to testify first?
Yeah, I'll start. So just for some background, my wife and I bought the house in 2017. There is an existing detached garage there. It's original to the home. The home's about 100 years old. We bought the house with, and the garage was as is. It was not in great condition when we bought it. Ultimately, the plan was at one point to replace it, which is where we are now. Over time, just if you look at the property, there's been backfill behind our house as the streets behind it were developed. And so there's soil coming up against the garage, which has caused it to basically essentially start to crack and fall down. And so goal is to replace it, and make it a little bit bigger. So it's fit our cars today for modern use. We'd also like to put a second floor on that we can use as a home office.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Hanson, any questions?
Just that the access to the second floor will be by way of an outside stairway. There's enough grade between the front of the garage and the back wall of the garage that they only need a couple steps to walk into what will be the second floor elevation.
Okay,
The back of the house is, or the back of the garage is only going to be about 4 or 5 feet out of the ground. Front of the garage is going to be 2 full stories. That's how much of a grade break there is in that corner of the property. He did have a wood deck in the backyard, and he did have a wood shed in the backyard that'll be subject to being removed as part of this. So there's only one accessory structure in the property. The other 2 were considered accessory structures at the initial review.
And any members of the public with any questions of this witness? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion. Mr. Gogan.
Yes, hello. I'll just first flip through some photographs to show the existing conditions around this garage. On the top here, and this is an exhibit that was not submitted yet. These are just the photos. Everything else I'm going to show was already submitted. I haven't changed anything.
Do we have this?
No.
You don't have these photos yet.
Okay, so I'll need you to provide Sonia with copies of whatever you're producing tonight.
I will.
On that, all right?
And just before we get too far into it, could you just,
He was talking.
he was sworn in. Can you just tell us your credentials?
Yes, I'm a licensed architect, and I also maintain a planner's license, although I don't do heavy-duty planning like some, as a professional planner. I just use it to be able to testify at hearings like this to justify variance relief.
All right, and is your architect's license in good standing in New Jersey?
Yes, it is.
And is your planner's license in good standing in New
Yes.
Jersey?
Okay, we'll accept you as an architect and a planner.
Thank you. So this is a view of the back of the garage where you can see that the.
All right, so before you get too far, we're going to mark this series of photographs as Exhibit A1. All right, do you know how many there are?
Well,
There are 10 photographs.
Okay, so 10 photographs will be A1. And if you go through them and just tell us what each one is then.
Okay. So starting at the top is a view of the back of the garage where over the years, we don't know exactly how it happened, but the neighbors behind this lot were filling the back of their yard, and the fill went right up against this existing garage. So it's caused a surcharge of soil and onto the wall that was not designed as a retaining wall. And this has also happened around the sides of the garage a little bit, where from that high level, it slopes down on each side. And the concrete block structure is cracking and failing. So we have to replace the whole thing. So this second shot is also the rear gable end of the garage. You can see that the dirt is all the way at the top of the wall, right about where the roof lands on top of the wall. That's looking sort of westerly toward the neighbor's property. That corner is right on the property line also.
right, and if I understand correctly, the new garage is going to be moved in, so there's no overhang into the neighbor's yard?
Yes, we are proposing to shift the whole footprint over to make it more compliant.
Okay. Continue.
This shot is looking also at the back of the garage from a little further away, where you can see this corner is the neighbor's, and this is the neighbor's fence that goes along that side. Right now, there's no room to maintain the fence or the garage along that side.
Is the garage on the side, is that sitting on the neighbor's property or at the property line as well as the back?
Yeah, let me go down to the first drawing real quick here, and I'll show you that footprint. So this is the garage. Burnham is at the bottom of the drawing. This is their existing driveway, the detached principal's house, and then the existing garage. I'll try to get it closer. You can see, it's hard to see, but there are dotted lines right here that shows the footprint of the existing garage.
Mhm.
And it goes right up to this is the back corner you just saw in the photograph, right on the property line.
Got it. Thank you.
So you have, this is that back corner I just pointed to. And then this is a view looking from about that corner down the property line toward Burnham, where you can see the neighbor's fence on the left and the roof of the garage, which has full of moss on the right. So this is that little gap between the sidewall of the garage and the property line. And this is a view from the Masterson's rear yard looking over there. And so to the left here is where the gable end I just showed you is full of soil. And then it comes down along the side of the garage on each side. That's the front. It's fairly small for two-car garages. Today, it would be hard to fit 2 cars in there. So we are proposing to enlarge it also to 24 by 24. Still a modest 2-car garage. And the whole thing will be shifted over a little bit. I'll show you this. So this is the corner where you can see that yard sloping up to the back. And then inside, this is just some shots of the wall. These were taken last year. It's probably worse now. But it's all the step cracking in the actual movement of the concrete wall, both on the back and a little bit on the sides. Sorry, this one's turned. That's the sidewall. That's the garage door. So it's a pretty significant problem. Okay, so this is my C1 sheet. It's exactly what was submitted, although yours are not in color. They're just black and white copies, I believe. And so this sheet shows some of those photos. An aerial photo here shows the Masterson's house right there. And there's their driveway, and there's the 2-car garage that we want to replace. And the neighbor's fence is right along that property line. As Dave Hansen mentioned, the proposal includes removing 2 structures that were non-compliant, and we're not sure if they were built with permits. They were pre-existing your ownership, right?
That's right.
So they don't need the shed. With the larger garage, they won't need a shed anymore. So we're going to take that out, and that'll remove one non-compliant condition. And then there's an octagonal deck that is also not being used and will be removed. So all of that will become lawn area. And as Dave mentioned, there's an exterior stoop, just an open wood deck type stoop, stepping up to the attic floor, essentially, of this garage. So they are proposing to occupy the attic level just as an office or a hobby type room, just an empty room, essentially. I think that you already have electric in the garage, right? So there'll just be some lighting up there.
Okay.
And I'll show you a little bit more of that. So essentially, that's it. The variance is because we are still non-compliant on the rear yard. We're proposing 5.2 feet, and we are proposing 1.4, where right now it's 0. We can't go too much further over because of the constraint of the existing house, the existing driveway, but we are going to be moving this set of steps and curbs and everything over with the garage. And then the other variance had to do with the combined side yards, which looks at the site as a whole. So we have 6.7 feet to the left side of the main house and the 1.4 up here.
Okay.
This is just the existing survey. I'll just zoom out for a second. Where you can see where the garage is, how that corner touches that property line, and you can see the shed and the deck that are being removed.
Okay.
So the footprint of the garage is essentially a pretty typical brick rectangular shape with 2 doors, 24 by 24. And then the stoop on the left side, because remember that is already up quite high, so we only have to go up a few steps to get to the attic floor. The attic is going to have dormers. It's still going to look like a 1.5-story garage, but so we're dormering a little bit just for headroom up here. And otherwise, it's pretty much an attic space with windows on the front and back. So we have a gambrel roof with basically the gutter line is still down where it is now, down close to that attic floor. And then a nice finish that looks traditional and like it could have been there all along. The existing house has some of these same roof features, so we were trying to be consistent architecturally. And then looking at the front view, you can see the stoop beyond, all the way in the back of the corner. And then the left side is here, so you can see the stoop here and that little dormer. And the right side, you can see that we still have dirt being retained alongside the garage, and we still have the same level in the back. We're not proposing any new retaining walls or changing that. We're going to design the garage as a retaining wall to just let all of it remain. And then, as Dave mentioned, the height calculation is a function of what's called the average grade. So we take the topographic points around the garage and average them out, and we come up with what's called an average grade, which is an imaginary line that runs across here. And then we're not allowed to build higher than 15 feet above that line to the ridge of the garage.
Correct. So you don't need a height variance?
No.
No.
So I think that's pretty much what we're here for, and I don't think I have too much more I have to say. Let me just look at the charts here. Rear today, side yards. Okay, there's a pre-existing lot area is required to be 15,000 in this zone. He's at 9,757, and then the lot width is also required to be 100. He's just under 100, 99.9. Otherwise, the coverages are okay. We did not have to get a variance for coverage.
Okay. And there's no practical way to put this garage anywhere within the setback lines?
No, there's no way to do it. We feel that it's preferable to keep it detached with space between it and the house to keep a more historic look and less bulky look to the house.
Okay. And the shed and the wood deck are going to be removed, correct?
Yes, the octagonal deck and the shed are going to be removed.
All right. Board members, any questions? Okay.
So, Mr. Gogan, with respect to utilities, will there be any in the garage?
I think, well, right now, there's an electric service. I don't know if it's overhead or underground. It's a existing wire.
There's overhead electric today.
Okay.
But we don't plan on running any plumbing or anything like that out there. So no HVAC will just run off electric, no natural gas lines or anything like that.
Want a sink, like a utility sink in the garage. Hose bib. Do you have a hose bib near the?
But it's up back in the house, so.
Okay, so there's no need for a hose bib.
And this is going to be used exclusively for storage, is that correct? Or office?
The second floor will be used as home office. So yeah.
Office, okay.
I'm just curious, does any part of that second floor have to have retaining wall-like properties built into it in the rear of the garage, or?
The retaining function will really just go to the top of the masonry wall. We're going to build a concrete block reinforced retaining wall up to the gable end. I'll show you that. So the portion that has the office will be wood framed up here. And this will all be retaining wall down here.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions?
Will there be any
adjustments made to the asphalt driveway because of the expansion in the width of the garage?
There will be a slight adjustment. We have the front wall of the garage aligned with where it is now. So it's just going to go further to the left from there.
To the left.
And then this little area that I'm pointing at is going to become paved. This is already a walkway, and the stairs here as a walkway, but there's a little bit of this area that will be expanding the driveway.
So you're going to go into the property with that minor adjustment?
Yes.
Any other board members?
When you go back to the first sheet,
Which one?
C1,
C1? Okay.
okay. The picture's at the top.
Yes.
Keep going, keep scrolling. Okay, when you come out of the garage, existing garage, pointing down to the bottom of the picture is what is a white curved line. What is that?
Okay. So this is the picture you're looking at here.
The
You're
one on the
looking
right.
Over here?
On the right side or the left side?
Aerial view?
The aerial view, yes.
Oh, one on the right.
This right here.
Okay. Okay, that is the neighbor's property.
That's the neighbor.
This whole section here is the neighbor's property.
Right,
And I believe that's their driveway, backup area. But our property is
Okay.
over here.
okay, my mistake. Makes more sense. Okay, yeah, I see it now.
The property in question is the top half.
I was looking at the wrong, at the,
Yeah.
I saw that in the picture when I first looked at it, and I said, what's that? Okay, no problem.
Any other board members with questions? Any members of the public with question? No? Yeah, you can ask a question as a member of the public.
This makes more sense.
Ms. Pulara, you have to go to the microphone.
When you take the structure down, do you have plan for like support of excavation since it's adjacent to the next property?
Can you say it again? Structurally, you're asking how are we going to build the wall of the garage to support the dirt?
Because since it's
Uh,
adjacent to the neighbor, you don't want to.
When the garage is removed, there will be a temporary disturbance to the right and the rear of the garage where we'll have to let some of that soil fall down. We have written permission from our right-hand neighbor to do that. We might have to speak to the rear neighbor, but we think we have enough room where we won't disturb any of the yard to the rear. So it'll just be a temporary excavation, build the new walls, and the backfill the same way.
Any other members? Questions?
I do have one more question.
Okay.
The runoff from the roof line, can you just address the gutters again? So the one that's adjacent to the property owner next door, the water's coming down to the front into a dry well, or?
No, it's just going up the driveway.
As far as I know, let's go back up here and see. I don't think there are gutters on there.
Gutters on the
They
garage.
just, all the water just drips down to each side. But we could put a gutter
Are
on the neighbor side at least, and just put a downspout on the corner. We do have the large overhangs, and let me go back to, you're saying like right here, we could put a gutter and then direct that water down the
I was just asking, yeah, so the current plans don't incorporate a gutter, you were just going to have no gutters, correct?
Yeah.
That's the, okay.
Mr. Hanson, any need for gutters on this?
Not really.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Any other members of the public with questions? If not, I'll close the public portion. Anything else?
I don't think so. I was just going to say a few things from the planning perspective, that basically I feel that we have some physical hardships with dealing with the pre-existing non-conforming location of the garage, trying to improve the non-conforming situation, but still, it will be non-conforming on the side and rear yards. Then we got the severe topographic issue that we have to deal with, and the existing house location, and so those are all existing hardships that we have to tolerate and cope with. And in addition, I think we have some C2 purposes that we're fulfilling in terms of the overall streetscape and the fact that you do see this garage from the street, although it's set way back to the rear. And we're trying to be architecturally interesting and consistent with the house, so we feel that it's an improvement over what's there now.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any comments, questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. And just my thoughts on this. The existing lot is less than 2/3 of that required by the zone. With the slope in the back, it's impossible to locate this garage anywhere else without basically paving the entire backyard. I'd be in favor of this application.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
All right, Ms. Santiago, roll call.
Mr. Goldberg,
Yes.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Simmons,
Yes.
Mr. Schuster,
Yes.
Mr. Benoit,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Woodford.
Yes.
So moved.
Okay.
I will have a resolution for you at the next meeting.
Okay. Next is BA-17-23, Michael Ewing.
Oh, must be.
Oh, that must be his. Yeah.
Our next application is BA-17-23, Block 6503, Lot 54, 40 Springbrook Road in the RA15 zone for Section C, Mr. Michael Ewing. This is a continuation from December 11th of 2023, March 25th, 2024, and June 10th of 2024 public hearings. The applicant proposes the construction of a two-story addition, creating a side yard setback on the right side of 15.44 feet and on the left side yard of 14.25 feet, where 20 feet is required, and creating a combined side yard setback of 29.44 feet, where 50 feet is required. The applicant will also seek a variance for a building height of 40.5 feet, where 35 feet is required, and a fence height on the left side of 7.5 feet, where 6 feet is allowed.
Okay, Mr. Brady, your appearance, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. David Brady of the firm of Brady and Coriel on behalf of, Mr. Ewing. As Sonia just recited, we started just about a year ago on this. We're hoping to be able to finish up tonight. Since it's been a year and there's been some changes, if the board will indulge me, wanted to just kind of review a little bit where we are. The property is 40 Springbrook. It's block 6503, lot 54. The property is in the RA15 zone. It's a 15,000 square foot lot, it's a 20,000 square foot lot in a zone that requires 15,000 square feet. It's basically a rectangle 100 feet wide by 200 feet deep on the south side of the street. There's an existing two-story house with a two-car attached garage, and it was built circa 1930. Our original proposal had several facets to it. We're going to put a roof over the front porch to provide some protection against the elements. We're going to expand the existing garage towards the left to better fit two cars into that garage and to have an interior access from the garage into the house, which doesn't exist now. We were going to also remove what I'll call a plain sort of shed addition on the right-hand side of the house where there's currently an office and replace it with a squared off addition with a lot more architectural detail than the current shed addition. We're also going to add a dining room behind the garage with an attached carriage house. The carriage house has a bedroom upstairs, parking for cars at the middle level. At the bottom level, there was basically a pool house sort of arrangement for use in connection with the pool. There's a pool and veranda that are proposed, and of course, interior changes. We've made a bunch of changes since then. Every time we've been here, we've come back and sharpened the pencil, so to speak. Currently, we're not going to remove that shed-like addition on the right-hand side that has the office. That's going to stay there, and we've removed the addition of the new kind of square office on the right-hand side. We've reduced the size of the dining room and the garage and shifted them to the right, the back. And then the outside details, so to speak, have also been modified. We've modified the chimney. We've modified the fence on top of the retaining wall along the driveway. We've got an extensive landscaping plan that we submitted last time. We've reduced what, by my count, was 7 variances in the original application, now down to essentially, I'll call it 2 variances. The side yard setback on the left-hand side and the combined side yards, combining both sides. Although the side yard setback has 2 components to it. One is the extension or expansion of the existing garage, and one is the erection of the carriage house.
Is there also one, because you're putting a second floor on the garage, and that garage, I think, is within the front yard setback by about a foot? It's 49 feet, so wouldn't you need a,
It's less than a foot. I think it's 49 feet and some inches, yeah.
so you need a variance for,
We need a variance for that. Thank you.
but you don't need one for the front entrance.
Don't need one for the front edge. That's compliant.
And what about the, any side wall or fencing still? Is there any variance
No,
requirement there?
there's no variance for the fence because we've gone from, I think it was a stockade sort of fence originally, to one of those wire fences, which is almost totally transparent. The way the ordinance is written, and Mr. Tobia will go into this a little bit, if you have that transparency like that, then you do not add the fence height onto the wall height. So by not having to add that fence height on, you don't have a variance.
Okay.
Okay. We've heard from Peter Dorn, the architect, Kathy Muller, the engineer, and Cecilia DeHuff, the landscape architect. Tonight I have Mr. Tobia, our planner, and unless the board has any questions, I ask that he be sworn in.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Your full name for the record, please.
Michael Tobia, Tobia.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, normally, I know the board has seen Mr. Tobia and I might waive having to qualify him. I would like him, though, to place his
Why don't we just have him put in, because we have members of the public here, and they're entitled to know what his qualifications are.
Thank you.
Okay, so hi, everybody. Michael Tobia, the applicant's planning consultant. I'm a licensed professional planner in the state of New Jersey, as you know. Hold a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in the field of urban planning. Finished my grad work in 1981, been practicing steadily in this field since then. It's about 43 years. Made appearances over the years before planning boards and zoning boards and governing bodies, totaling about 200 separate agencies over the years, as well as multiple appearances in local courts, state courts, and many appearances, of course, before this board.
I ask that he be accepted as a professional, an expert in professional planning.
So accepted. You may
Okay.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I got 15 minutes for you tonight, and what I thought I'd do first is very quickly describe what Dave just described for you in plan form. Up on your monitors is our site plan. September 10th is the date, unchanged since the last time we saw you, prepared by Kathy Muller. Basically, what's been described in the past with this current plan are 3 things. We're calling one addition A If you look at my pointer, I'll circle that. That's the element at the southeast portion of the site. That includes a new one-bay garage, parking for 2 cars, but 1 bay, a dining room, a basement level, which has pool equipment in it, as well as a sitting room, and up on the top floor of this element, a bedroom suite. Okay. Addition A also involves not only the dining room, but some work on a veranda off to the west side of the rear of the house. Addition A. Addition B is much more modest. It's a 3.5-foot bump out of the existing garage. More on that later, but the idea is to widen the existing garage, make it more functional. On top of that existing garage will be placed a second new bedroom, also a suite. And then we have addition C, which is the little portico in front of the building. Right now, this home, as nice as it is, has a lot of warts and moles. Trying to fix a lot of them. One is that we don't have a covered walkway or covered entranceway in front. So addition C, which has not been talked about a lot, is just a portico. No variance is needed. Swimming pool is proposed at the rear of the property, 16 by 38 feet in dimension. Variance-free. Back there is also some stormwater improvements. And that's basically the proposal. Mr. Ewing to my left is the applicant. As you heard, he's moved in May of 2022. Been in the property now 2.5 years. Been working on this probably for 1.5 years to get it to where we are now. Now what I'm going to do, we'll walk you through the property. Mr. Aller, this is a new exhibit, just your usual PowerPoint dated September 23rd, with photos taken May 24th of this year. Need an exhibit number if you don't mind.
I think we are up to A12. Dave, you have that? Okay.
A12.
So that's a PowerPoint presentation, A12.
11 sheets. I took the photos May 24th. And Sonia, I'll send you an electronic copy if you want.
Yes, please.
So we're going to walk you through the property. 40 Springbrook Road. And so just to let you know what's going on, the house on slide 2 is dead center on this property. That's subject property. To the right of it is Ms. Sellers' house. She's a concerned neighbor. That wowould be to the east. And to the west, you've heard from the Nugent family. That's the next house over. Springbrook Road's at the top of the exhibit, 23-foot wide roadway, no parking on the roadway. This site, can't see it on an aerial, but from the street to the rear property line pitches down. It's about a 20-foot grade change from Springbrook Road to the rear of the property. Here's the house. It's about 94 years old now. Some nice curb appeal to it, but what we've learned from the testimony of Peter Dorn is it's old, okay? Problems have been noted on the record. Garage is too narrow, doors are too low. Getting in and out of this house is one of the driving forces behind the application. Although there's a garage that I'll show you in a moment that's attached to the house, there's no staircase that's attached to the house. So you got to go out the garage door, go back into the house. It's one of the things we hope to fix up. The staircases are a mess, bad risers, bad runners. The bathrooms are, 3 of the 4 bathrooms are not ensuite bathrooms. You heard from Mr. Dorn, that's state of the art these days. We'd like to fix that. Roof pitch on both of the elements, the main element shown here on slide 3, as well as the garage, is too low for this type of architecture. Mr. Dorn's going to fix that. You can see here what I said before, dead center on this slide, no covering over the front doorway. There's bad plumbing. There's 7 heating systems. The air conditioning needs replacement. And Mr. Ewing himself said he's going to be $250,000 into this thing, just fixing up some of the things I mentioned to you. The proposal is to fix it up, expand it, and turn it into one of the nicer houses in the neighborhood. Slide 4 is the rear facade. A lot happens in the back. You'll see it on the site plan, but basically all the addition is going toward the back of the house. Most of the additions, the garage, the dining room, the veranda will be out of public view from Springbrook Road. Slide 5. The rear entry garage is shown here from Springbrook Road. So you see 2 windows on the front of that garage. No door, no garage doors. This means folks have to go down the driveway, do a K-turn or a double K-turn and back into the garage door. It's extremely awkward. I've classified it, my applicant has classified it as kind of a non-functional garage right now, other than for storage. Dave mentioned before, there was a plan once to replace the office on the west side of the house. That's not going to happen anymore. But here on slide 5 is what that existing office looks like. Okay. Okay. So slide 7 now is looking east at the seller's residence. And it shows the garage, the rear entry garage on the left. The existing vegetation on the right will all be removed in favor of Celia DeHuff's rather extensive landscaping plan that you all saw, I believe, at our last hearing. Going further down the easterly property line, there is plant material down there. There's no house down there. There's nothing to the northeast and northwest of the property at the lower level where the pool will go. The existing patio is shown in slide 9, house on the right. And now we're looking toward the west property line where there is some existing vegetation. We're going to stop here. Slide 10 is the rendering. Previously, Mr. Aller entered into Exhibit A7 a couple months back. This is when Peter Dorn presented his revised plan that did several of the things Mr. Brady mentioned before, making the addition smaller, improving the roof line of the rear structure, and improving the side yard setback of the garage. If we look at this, let me see if I can get you a little more zoom on this. Okay, that's not bad. So, so slide 10 shows the existing house, mid-right on the slide. The renovated front garage. Now, a one-story element. The lower level will remain a garage. A 2-bay garage will be widened by 3.5 feet. Will be provided with 9-foot wide garage doors. They'll be 7 feet high, whereas the existing doors are only 6.5. In other words, it'll be modernized to what Mr. Dorn called the state-of-the-art 2-bay garage. Up top, bedroom suite. In the back is the proposed addition that adds another garage bay to the property with a bedroom up. The rest of the addition is shown in the back. There's a metal roof proposed. Dining room, covered veranda, even the swimming pool. The back center of the site is shown on the exhibit. You see part of the pool and the patio. This is a case where nearly every zoning requirement in the RA15 zone is met. Okay, single-family house obviously is a permitted use. The pool is a permitted accessory use. The garage is a permitted accessory use. This site, as it's now presented to you, meets zoning requirements for building coverage, impervious coverage, building height all over the place, front yard setback, all the pool setback requirements are met. Pools in Morris Township have to meet your principal building setbacks. They're all met and exceeded in the back. Mr. Chairman, what you were talking about before with the front yard setback is the existing house is built at 49.89 feet from Springbrook Road. It's 1 inch light of the requirement. A couple meetings ago, we had a discussion that basically said, well, if you're going to expand straight up from that facade with this second floor bedroom element, you need a variance for a 1 inch setback. It's correct. Okay. It's de minimis. It's microscopic. We don't build houses with facades that go up and then jog back 1 inch and then continue up. So if that's a variance, we would suggest it's de minimis. The flat facade is the way you build these things, and it's of no consequence from a planning perspective. So with all these zoning requirements met, the case really turns its attention to side yard setback variances. The front garage, once this addition goes on, once it gets expanded eastward, ends up with a 14-foot side yard setback. 20 feet's the requirement. The back garage, as proposed now, ends up with a 14.25 foot setback. 20 feet's the requirement. So in round numbers, both the front addition and the back addition B in front, A in the back, are short by 6 feet of compliance with the side yard setback. Moreover, a 50-foot combined side yard requirement is what's needed in town. In the zone, this site with these two additions and the existing office building on the other side will give you a combined side yard of 29.44 feet. Okay, making it the second significant variance on the case. All other zoning requirements are met. The proofs here are simple. They've been explained by Mr. Doran, by Ms. Muller. I'll go through them again quickly. This is a 100-foot wide lot. The existing house, since it was built, had non-compliant side yard conditions. That office is 9 feet off the property line. The garage is 17 feet and a little bit more off the property line. The house never fit within the prescribed 50-foot building envelope.
Just a point of order, the house was built before the zoning ordinance, is that?
Yes, sir. Predate zoning, that's in Mr. Hansen's review, so it predates zoning, okay? What the applicant is looking to do, first of all, it meets both C1 and C2. The C2 variance in the front with the garage is easy. The existing garage is non-functional. This is $1 million purchase price plus for this applicant. It's about to become a multi-million-dollar house when it's done. Everyone wants a usable garage. Everyone wants headroom on the garage, so we're going to fix the doorway going top to bottom. 9 foot's a standard garage width. Those deficiencies will be corrected by expanding this by just 3.5 feet. That side yard setback will relate to the second floor as well. In the back, it's 14.25 feet. The design idea here was A, get a garage in the back that's workable. It's also 9 feet wide for that garage door. And use the same setback in the back that we're using in the front. So we're talking about some symmetry from front to back, with the back garage being having slightly more of a setback than the front one. Okay. The overall width of the property is 100 feet, as I said. It's 200 feet long, which is longer and deeper than what RA 15 requires. So we have the lot area, we just don't have it in the right direction. If the lot was 20 feet less deep and 20 feet wider, these side yard setbacks go away. Okay, but in order to do what's needed here, side yard setback relief is required. Moreover, as you heard from Mr. Dorn, with the architecture testimony, there are a multitude of benefits on the job that vastly outweigh the detriment of a side yard setback variance, either front or back. This is now being proposed, as you see with slide 10, with just world-class residential architecture. Okay, everybody would do it differently. Mr. Dorn proposed what's a really nice traditional architectural product. I've gone through your building standards and your land development ordinance. He meets virtually everything there. There are cupolas here, shutters, double hung windows, use of metal roofs, panel doors, great fenestration, facade breaks all over the place. And in a nutshell, as he said, I don't design ugly. Well, this isn't ugly. This is a really nice building. There are many other benefits, including modernization of the house, garages that finally work. It's going to fix up heating. We're going to propose a multitude of landscaping fixes for the two neighbors that flank us. When you do this type of job, because it's so extensive, you bring an old house virtually into complete code compliance. Okay, so a 100-year-old house all of a sudden will be inspected many times by the local building inspectors and achieve either full compliance or pretty close to full compliance. I want to talk about detriments, with the questions, as you know, being, is this a substantial detriment to the public good? Is it a substantial impairment to the zoning ordinance? Well, it's not a substantial impairment to the zoning ordinance because virtually every zoning requirement for the zone is now met. Like I said, side yard setbacks are the issue. Everything else is met. I want to talk about height for a second because height's a big indicator of building mass. The existing or the proposed addition, the main addition to the existing house and the proposed dining room to the rear is a 33.5-foot building height. 35 is the permitted condition. So we're under it and we comply. The ordinance also says no part of the building can exceed by 33% the 35-foot standard. It's usually what we apply for walkout basements so that the basement level walkout isn't, let's say, a 50-foot high roof line. We meet that as well. 33 feet's the proposed condition, 33.5, and 46.67 feet is the permitted condition. Now, what
I'm sorry,
really-
could you repeat that?
last one?
Yeah, about the 46 feet versus the 35 feet.
Okay, so
The
the
condition,
height requirement, it's twofold. 35 feet is a flat requirement. And then your ordinance also says at no point around the house shall any part of the house be 46.67 feet or exceed that number.
from the ground.
And that, Mr. Benoit, is simply 35 feet times 1.33, instead of a third to the building height. It's to make sure no part of the house really gets big and high for neighbors. We meet it easily. Okay, we meet it easily.
What is the highest point on the house from the ground immediately below it? You said it's 33, the,
33.5 feet.
you said that's for the dining area. What about for the garage and pool house?
40.5 feet.
40.5.
Okay. Now, the really important news with this is we also looked at building height for the two proposed additions that get too close to the East Street property line. Addition B in the front That's what we'll call the old garage. Remember, that's 14 feet proposed, okay? But this building is only 23 feet high. Okay? What that means is we're 12 feet light on the height requirement. And we're asking you for a variance of about 6 feet off the side property line. The lower a building gets, the less impact the side yard setback variance is, right? Because it's less massing. Same thing happens in the back. It's not as pronounced, but the rear addition and the rear new garage at 14.2 feet, 25 feet off the side property line is 30 feet high. 35 feet's the requirement. So it's 5 feet less than the requirement, 6 feet light on the side yard setback. Again, height has compensated a bit for the side yard deficiency.
Okay, where is the 40.5 foot height located?
Back of the proposed garage addition.
Okay, so that's 40.5, but the average is 30 based upon the sloping of the property. Is that correct?
Right. So what's happening, Mr. Chairman, remember what I said? High point on this site, Springbrook Road.
Right.
If you walked all the way to the back,
About
you'd
a
be
20
looking up
feet.
at Springbrook.
Yeah, it's about a 20-foot drop from front left to, or front right to rear left.
You got it. And that's why that 40.5 foot dimension is in the back, because that's the lower part of the property.
And does that slope continue? That's also in the neighbor's property also. It continues to slope in her direction. Is that correct? To the property on the left.
That, it slopes off on that side, yes.
Okay, so that 40.5 foot structure, where she is looking at it, it appears even higher than the 40.5 feet.
It's probably true.
Okay.
So anyway, height compensates for side yard setback. That's why these side yard variances are reasonable. There's another thing going on here, which is you heard some really strong testimony from Celia DeHuff on landscaping at the last meeting. What she is proposing is a dense landscaping plan on both side property lines. I'll go through it in detail if you want, but basically what she's talking about doing is adding evergreen plant material along the easterly property line that will range up to from, I think, 6 feet to 25 feet at maturity. She likes green giant arborvitae, emerald green arborvitae. You all are familiar with arbs, and they grow really abundantly. Most importantly, the 25 footers are to be placed right adjacent to the new garage addition at the back, garage addition A, or building addition A. Same
While
thing.
you had your cursor along that driveway, I talked to the board about the fence and the transparent design. Can you point that out, talk about that a little bit?
Lower left of slide 10 are two things. One, retaining walls to hold our driveway up. Once you have a retaining wall, you have to put a fence on it so people don't fall off the wall. If the fence and the wall in height add up to more than 6 feet, we need a variance. We once needed a variance on this. I think we were at 7.5 to 9 feet. When Kathy Muller changed the plans, she all but eliminated retaining wall variances, except we still had to put a 3-foot fence on top of the wall. That fence was going to be solid a few meetings ago. Since then, I asked the team to spec out what's called a cable railing system. If you follow my pointer here, it runs along the east side of the garage, east side of the driveway, I should say, returns to the back garage addition, building addition A, and secures the wall. Cable railing systems are basically transparent systems. When a fence is under 25% or more than 25% transparent, it doesn't count with respect to wall height. So by doing this, we've eliminated that wall height variance from many months ago. The other advantage of a cable railing system is they're basically invisible. Okay, when you get 10, 15 feet away, you look right through. You will see the columns, but that's what transparency is supposed to do. And Dave, that's why we don't need a wall height variance anymore. Okay, let me just continue quickly. On the west side of the property, which is not shown in the exhibit, but remember I told you there's a pool and pool deck shown upper left on the exhibit. The applicant is also proposing on that side 12 arborvitae along the pool deck in the back. And then when you come along the addition on that side, the veranda, 5 green giant arborvitae, which go 25 feet high, according to Mr. Huff's testimony. Okay. This is a very thorough landscaping plan. I've said to this board before, it's not a detriment to see a single-family home. Right. We look at single-family homes, especially in a neighborhood like this. That's not a bad thing. But what's happened here is Mr. Dorn's created a house that's really pleasant to look at, and Mr. Huff has created a landscaping plan that will provide a really dense evergreen buffer for the flanking neighbors. I'll say again, nearly every zoning requirement is met on the plan. This does also, by the way, I don't know if you all parked on Springbrook. It's a really tight road, 23-foot wide cartway, no parking. Well, parking's permitted, but parking's just not practical. When the landscaper trucks park on the road, which is a daily occurrence, it's chaos. It becomes a one-lane road. What's happened here is this applicant's adding more parking off-street between the proposed garage and this parking court now. So his visitors, his family members and all can come and visit and at least get some of those cars off of Springbrook Road. That improves the parking condition in the neighborhood. We meet building coverage. We're below on impervious coverage by 2.5 percentage points. I've shared with you the height requirements. Importantly, if you don't like this building, if you don't like the way the addition looks, you ain't gonna see it from Springbrook Road anyway. It's all in the backyard. Okay. I'll close, Mr. Aller, by my notes. This applicant has stipulated to 5 items. One would be no apartment in the rear building. That was a concern of the neighbors in the audience. That's prevented by zoning anyway, but we would stipulate to that. There was a concern about floodlights over the swimming pool. We proposed no floodlights and would accept the condition that there be no floodlights. The back of the property will be lighted the way all other homes in the neighborhood are. Lights over man doors, maybe a light in the pool, but nothing overhead firing down.
I noticed from the meeting where we said that I had bollards written next to it, so there might be bollard lights or some low lighting.
Right.
We did talk about low voltage, lower foot lighting.
And low in height also.
On the site plan prepared by Ms. Muller, on the west side, over near that existing office addition, which is proposed to stay, there's a drafting area there, you may recall. For some reason, we're showing a couple of air conditioning condensers. They don't exist. So we want to eliminate that drafting error on the plans.
Sorry, Michael, tell me that location again.
Look, west side or right side,
Yeah.
with the office bump out. Somewhere in there, you see 2 little squares.
Yeah, you have 2 sets, right? So-
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Actually, I
So-
believe there's one unit on that side, but not in that location.
Okay, so,
We have to revise it to reflect.
so the 4 that are shown are not there, but there's one somewhere on that
On that
side.
side.
We will fix it in any event to correct the,
Okay, but that's today. What about proposed? Are you adding air
Yeah,
conditioning?
the
units?
testimony by Mr. Dorn was, are we replacing units? Yeah,
You're not adding
Here's the picture.
additional.
so here's the office. The condensers are to the rear. The question was, are they to the side?
If I may.
So
Just talk to your witness and then he'll explain it.
There are two large condenser units right
To the
here.
right, yeah.
One of them is not functional, but they'll both be replaced. And about where your cursor is, there's a small unit that's attached to a unit inside. And
Gotcha.
they work together.
Okay, so we will correct the plans to properly reflect what's in the field. Okay. And then the only other thing we wanted to do, we thought we would offer this, and it's a standard condition, is we're putting lot plant material in. We would stipulate to a 1-year planting guarantee on everything being added. So if a plant or two don't make it, we'll replace them. Okay?
Well, why wouldn't that continue beyond 1 year? I mean, if the buffering is so important here, why wouldn't that continue? Why wouldn't there be a continuing buffer maintenance replacement obligation?
I'm going to replace my own stuff, sure. So,
Right, so you'd be okay with that?
okay.
Right, forever.
Perpetuity.
Right.
No. That's what we do on site plans for car dealerships. It's forever.
Okay, fine.
Landscaping's forever, it's not for 2 years.
Michael, could you, it sounded to me like your testimony was that this should be analyzed under a C2 analysis. Could you list the goals of the MLUL that was being advanced?
So, sorry about that. Yeah, for the reasons stated, Dave, goals A, C, G, I, and M. A, C, G, I, and M are being advanced. A just speaks to general welfare, promotion of the general welfare. When you fix a house up like this and eliminate so many problems and deficiencies, create an architectural specimen, you are promoting the general welfare. C says promote adequate air, light, and open space. And I always like to point out that the land use law says adequate air, light, and open space. Doesn't say the maximum, doesn't say the lot should be completely empty. We think what we've done here with the 14-foot setbacks is adequate, especially given the landscaping we're proposing. Goal G says provide sufficient space and appropriate location for residential uses. It's a residential zone. We're proposing a home. We're proposing a great-looking home in a residential neighborhood. I speaks to promoting a desirable visual environment. I'll let slide 10 speak for itself, but we think this is, as I said before, just extraordinary architecture on the part of Mr. Dorn. And M says seek to promote the more efficient use of land. This is a 94-year-old house. It needs some work. A lot of people buy old homes to fix them up. Okay, it's what's being done here is commendable. It makes the house more efficient, makes the neighborhood more attractive, and it makes everything on the site, landscaping and all the amenities, more efficient than what's out there now. So those are the goals.
Okay. With regard to the negative criteria in the statute, do you see any substantial detriment to the public good?
Nope.
And do you see any substantial impairment of the zone plan or zoning ordinance?
Like I said, we're so close to full compliance, Dave, it's impossible for me to conclude that we're really impairing the intent and purpose of the ordinance.
And you've indicated that the building coverage, the impervious coverage, and the height are all compliant. From a planning perspective, does that have significance as to the the intensity or the extent of the proposal?
So, three biggest indicators of massing in any zone, any residential, any zone, height, building coverage, impervious coverage. Other things like setbacks, parking, we take them all seriously, but the three big indicators here are all met. Height doesn't even get to the maximum, nor does impervious coverage.
I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any other house in this neighborhood where the existing structure extends so far back to the rear as the proposed structure here?
Haven't studied that, Mr. Chairman. If you go out to the corner of Armstrong and Springbrook, you see some houses with pretty big boxes that would probably do something like this, but I haven't examined that. All I can tell you is the designers on this have used the permitted building envelope going front to back.
Okay. Isn't the maintenance of a neighborhood part of the general welfare under the planning guidelines?
Yes.
Okay. And this house would be very, very visible to the neighbor to the east, is that correct? This extension?
Listen, Mr. Dorn said it best. When we proposed a 5-foot setback on this job,
Right.
going way back, going back a year.
Right, I remember.
He said, you're going to see the house. Then he said, when we go 14 feet off the sideline, you're going to see the house. And he said, even if we went 20 feet off the sideline, you're still going to see the house. This was all about impact from the easterly side.
Right. But as something gets further away, it's less intimidating and imposing upon a neighbor, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Board members, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
The view of the backyard shows two retaining walls, a large retaining wall, and then further back, there's a smaller retaining wall. And it looked to me like the first retaining wall was pretty large. Behind the pool, what will be the retaining wall requirements? I'm just wondering whether it's actually going to need a variance for any kind of retaining wall behind.
Yeah, there's a little bit of grading going on back there. It's only a 2-foot high wall, Mr. Benoit.
The furthest one back.
Yes, the one back near the rear property line,
Right, the
yes.
first one looks pretty high.
First one peaks, I think, at, first one peaks at 3 feet.
That's it?
Yep.
I looked at this.
And it looks like,
It looks a lot higher.
it looks like what they're doing with part of that, I don't know if Mr. Hanson wants to chime in, but I think there's some retaining going on with the back of that proposed garage that's then going to lead into the retaining wall that's 3 feet high.
Yeah, bottom. The bottom level is acting as a retaining wall to the lower patio and the pool area.
Right. Okay, so beyond that, there won't be need for,
It's a very shallow slope down to the retaining wall near
Okay.
the back, and that's only 2 foot high,
okay,
and then it's flat, as flat can be.
Pretty flat.
Behind that, it's going to be normal grade,
okay.
the existing grade.
All right, thank you.
That's the wall.
You know, and you reminded me, Mr. Benoit, in that backyard, behind that little 2-foot wall, testimony from Mr. Huff said we have no disturbance back there. So the plant material that's way in the back is staying. We're not doing grading back there or paving or anything.
I recall that, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions from board members?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So you talked about the fencing that will be at the front part of the property. If you go down the easterly side, is it going to be a different type of fence that will kind of block out the view of the pool area? Or is it a similar type of fence and then there's going to be?
Different fence. Down there, pool fencing requirements are met. The ordinance has a separate requirement for pool fencing, 4 feet high,
Right.
non-climbable. And that's what encircles the pool area in the back.
And will there be landscaping around the fence that goes down the side and around that pool area as well?
There
or no?
is, on each side of the pool,
Mhm.
okay, east and west, Mr. Huff has designed what she calls a triple hedge. So on the outside are the arborvitaes I talked about. You go in one notch and you have hydrangea, you go in one more and you have boxwood. So the hydrangea and the boxwood are more decorative
Mhm.
for people on the pool deck looking out. And then the arborvitaes do the heavy work, right?
Thank you.
Okay, any other board members with questions? Mr. Hanson, any questions? Members of the public with any questions of this witness?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'll put my appearance on the record again. I'm John Urson from Schenck Price, representing the neighbor at 42 Springbrook. Mr. Tobia, there was a lot of testimony in earlier meetings about the process in developing the plans for this house. Were you involved in the planning stages of designing the additions to the house?
No.
You spent a lot of time tonight reciting Mr. Dorn's testimony. One of the things that struck me about Mr. Dorn's testimony is that he specifically testified that he designed the house the way he thought was best, and then later on looked to see if it would fit within Morris Township's zoning code. So you were pointing out the footprint of the house and the available area for building. So I'd just like to review that. The house as it currently exists sits on a 100-foot wide lot, is that right?
Yes.
And the house is about 67 feet wide, or at least the extent of the footprint is about 67 feet wide.
That's correct, yep.
And currently, as the house exists, there's a 100-foot rear yard setback.
I'll take your word for it, but yeah, it's about halfway back on the lot. You're correct.
Okay. And when in the plan, even the plan that you have up now, that is proposed to be reduced to a 60-foot setback in the rear yard.
And you're asking me, Mr. Urson? Right?
Yes,
The proposed rear yard setback, is that the question?
correct.
Yeah, you catch me with the one dimension that's not called out on the plan. Hold on a second. It's 54.7 feet.
Okay. So the point that I'm trying to make is the existing house occupied about 67 feet of the width of the lot without going any further to either side. And the plan that you have now, that you've emphasized that large portions of the plan are compliant, you had another 40-ish or so feet to use in the backyard, right?
It's accurate.
Okay. So you had 2,600 feet or so of footprint where the addition could be planned and no variances would be required.
So, nice question, okay?
Are you going to answer it?
Yeah, that's true. And yet, going further, and Mr. Dorn really should have been asked this question, but going further back moves what would be building addition A, that's the new garage area, into a spot, let's say where the swimming pool is now. Okay, we'd be going south on the property to a location without having sketched it out that would be utterly impractical for what we're trying to achieve here.
Okay. I was just trying to emphasize your testimony because you were explaining to the board that you were in compliance with most of the elements, but yet even when you had that much square footage to work with, you decided that the only possible place to put it was closer to my client's house.
I think that's an accurate remark. Not when you say me.
Not you.
Right.
Because I'm asking you a little bit of a hypothetical because you weren't involved in the planning process, or maybe we wouldn't be here. You might have given some different advice.
I'm honored.
You might have told them how to make this a lot easier.
Well, listen,
That's speculation, so let's move on and ask real quick.
So, Mr. Toby, you, it was interesting at the end, and we'll come around, but at the end, you said that looking at C2 and then looking at criteria A, you said that it eliminates lots of problems and deficiencies.
Correct.
And in what we're calling addition A, there's a second-story ensuite bedroom. How did that eliminate a problem or deficiency?
well, I wouldn't, well, okay. So what was explained is there are 4 bedrooms in this house now. They're ancient. They're not en suite. Your master is en suite, correct? Master is en suite, 3 or not. One of the design directives was to make them all en suite. En suite means bedroom, bathroom, closet, all in the same unit, kind of like you'd get at a hotel. So that second floor bedroom above the building addition A would help eliminate that one problem identified by Mr. Dorn.
Okay, but I am pointing out that you were indicating that it was a problem or deficiency as if it was a planning justification that you really, really want ensuite bedrooms.
Listen, it's a design challenge. There's some things here that are not eliminating problems, okay? The design is to build a really nice house for the applicant. And that's one example of trying to make a fix.
And I think that's fair, building a really nice house for the applicant, but I'm sort of focused on the actual parts of the really, really nice house for the applicant that impair the zone plan and encroach towards my client's house. So we just talked about the one ensuite, but that wasn't enough. So you also have an ensuite over addition B. So in both encroachments into the side yard towards my client's house, you've got not just one ensuite to eliminate the problem or deficiency, you're building a second ensuite bedroom.
That's correct.
Okay. And your planning testimony, can it really be a planning justification that you really, really needed 2 ensuite bedrooms to move into the side yard setback?
I think it can. And remember, the C2 argument takes in a basket of benefits, as I explained. Those are benefits. They were challenges given to Mr. Dorn. They fixed those problems. And there are other things that fix problems. And there are other things here, Mr. Urson, like I said, that are not about fixing their problems. They're building, world-class residential architecture.
Yeah, but that's not a planning consideration or a justification for encroaching into the side yard setback with the second story twice.
I want you to hear, this is the best way it was laid out by our architect. The encroachments are, listen, it's a Board of Adjustment. There are encroachments now that we feel are appropriate. And then, I did want everyone in the room to focus on the landscaping that we feel will really soften the view of both of those building additions.
And part of the encroaching area in addition A is the pool house that contains a kitchen for the pool house. Was that solving a problem or deficiency?
It's a kitchenette. This is on the ground floor of building addition A, as you may recall. It has a sitting area in there, a kitchenette, a bathroom, and it's to service the pool. It's down at the grade level of the pool. That's not solving any particular problem, Mr. Urson. That's just designing a pool in the proper fashion.
Okay. So if you eliminated it and reduced that square footage, it would encroach less.
Well, no, remember now your garage back there, are you saying the so-called pool house?
So look, you and I aren't the architects, and we already cross-examined Mr. Dorn, so we could ask a lot of questions about where you would put what, right? I'm not asking you that. That's not fair. I'm just asking you, this is your testimony, which I completely understood, talked about the massing of the structure, the various uses, but I don't mean this as criticism because I think you're making the best argument, but you're lumping all of these things very quickly together and saying that they're eliminating problems and deficiencies. And I'm just trying to point out that most of the things that are in these additional areas that encroach towards my client's house are quite luxuries, not solving deficiencies and problems.
Fair enough. Remember, it's the applicant's property, okay? And this is his vision. He's been working on it for a couple of years. This house, when it's built, will be a luxury house.
Yeah, I understand. And I understand the applicant wants what he wants, and that's fair, and he's here asking for it. But I'm just trying to focus on, from planning testimony, that we should be dividing what's a luxury and what is actually solving a problem or deficiency. And for example, one of the things that, if you look at the plan that you have up now, one of the things that moves Addition A closer to the property line is that really fantastic octagon dining room. So if that octagon dining room was square or rectangular, you could have everything you wanted in Addition A, and it could be moved over 7 feet. And again, I'm not asking that as an architectural question. I'm asking you whether the octagon dining room is solving a problem or deficiency sufficient to justify a variance.
So you weren't at the first hearing. Your partner was Mr. McBriar?
Yes.
At that hearing, Mr. Ewing spoke. He was our lead witness, and he explained the inspiration behind the octagon dining room. Okay, this goes to a story out in Illinois, as I recall. This is his property. Okay, it's his house. This is his design. That is that's only 20 feet left to right. Okay, reduced in size from that first meeting after listening to what the board had to share. And listen, you're completely right. There are 20 ways to design this thing. There were probably 20 that were made before we even got to the board. This is what the applicant's chosen to present now. Emphasizing, remember what I said, a lot of plant material along the property line, and the two additions you're concerned about have reduced height. In fact, what happened, Mr. Urson, with A, building addition A, as we went from our first plan before this board to the second one, we turned the roof sideways, because we know when the gable faces parallel to a lot line, it reduces massing than when you show the high side facing the property line. So we're trying to do our best.
I thought you said something that was important, which I also think is true. You said twice that if you lower the building height, it gets less impact. So if you eliminated the ensuite bedroom in Addition A, that would have a lot less impact on the neighboring property.
It's not on the table, but you're asking me if I take a top floor off that building, will it be less massing? Yes.
Okay.
This was yes. Okay.
Would you mind, you just mentioned the landscaping. Could you go to your slide 5? Do you have that?
You're talking about the photograph, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in your PowerPoint, I think it was 5.
Is this what you want?
Yes.
Slide 5?
Yeah.
So, board members, this is slide 5 from Springbrook Road, looking at the front of the garage. Garage doors right now are behind the building. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. So, Mr. Tobia, again, you did a good job of summarizing and reminding the board of the landscape architect's testimony. And I agree, that was a lot of testimony and it was a lot of plantings. But you would agree that right now, this is the line, this is the property line between 42, between 40 and 42, with my client's property being behind this, look, I would call it a hedgerow because I'm not a landscape architect. You agree that there's significant existing buffering between 40 and 42 at this point?
Is that 42 or is that 38?
42.
42 to the east, okay. I just want the record clear. So you're talking about the house to the east of the site. Listen, the answer is maybe. That's a good photograph, okay, shot in May. The stuff right along the driveway there are low-lying shrubs. You should have in there azaleas, rhodos, maybe a couple boxwoods. They're 4 feet high. It's pretty, okay, and it's nice. It's not going to be what Mr. Huff proposes, which is going to have a lot more verticality to it.
So that's what I was going to ask you. I was trying to get you to agree with me that was a lot of buffering.
I agree with you. Listen, it's a lot of buffering at grade.
Okay.
Okay.
But clearly, even though there's quite a lot of effort with respect to the landscape architect, there will be less buffering under the landscape architect's plan than what exists here now.
No. This would come out. What's going in here, just so you know, let me just slow it down a second, okay? Where those shrubs are, and remember, the testimony is that low-lying stuff will come out, has to be removed. It will be replaced in front of the garage, building addition B, which is roughly where the existing garage is now, by 15 arborvitae growing to 10 feet high was the testimony. So the buffer is going to be improved vertically in that area. And then when you go back behind building addition B, along the whole so-called parking court, she's got 11 arborvitae growing to 15 feet high. Okay? And then further back in the vicinity of building addition A, she has 4 more, in that case, really big ones going 25 feet high.
So when you put addition B is the addition that goes over the lower section that we can see right here.
Correct.
Okay. So as it stands right now, there's quite a bit of buffering that's as tall as that, and you were illustrating that there's going to be 10-foot arborvitae along that section.
Yes, it will be taller than what's out there now. Hold on one second, if you don't mind. Okay, so now I'm on slide 7, Mr. Urson. This gives you a better idea of what's out there now. You can see, at best, it's probably chest high on me. And in this area, this is where she has proposed things up to 25 feet high.
When you were turning to your planning testimony, you said that the C2 criteria was met easily because of the usable garage. Is that correct?
Among other benefits, yes.
Okay. So, and your testimony was that Springbrook is not a great place to park and that additional parking is required. So if the justification for the variance was parking, you could have certainly made additional parking spaces that would have accomplished the same objective.
You mean build a parking lot instead of the garage in the back? Is that?
Yes, it's lower.
That's another option.
You also mentioned at one point that because, I'm sorry, would you mind flipping back to 5 for a minute? Thank you. You mentioned at one point that with the 3-foot addition to addition B, that the side yard would be reduced to 14 feet. And then you said that for symmetry, you were also going to encroach to 14 feet in the back. But symmetry isn't a planning objective, and there's no real necessity that you encroach 14 feet in the back the same way you're encroaching 14 feet in the front.
It's a design preference expressed by Mr. Dorn, and let me show you in plan form if you don't mind. So what the gentleman is saying, board members, is our addition in the front, addition B, that building setback line came right back. I'm looking at the site plan now, and was basically mimicked in the back. It gets about 3 more inches further away from the property line in the back. There was other stuff explained here, Mr. Urson, if you don't mind. Pushing this parking module further west, either pinched the dining room you mentioned before, eliminated this architectural bridge that Mr. Dorn thought was very attractive, and Ms. Muller, this is going way back now, but she said the further this addition A went to the west or to the right as you see it on the plan, the more difficult it would be to get cars out of that new garage and into the driveway to exit. We're back on slide 5.
And Mr. Tobia, when you, I think the chairman asked you the question immediately after your testimony. Normally, when you testify with these types of variances, where the size of the house and the size of the lot and the impact to the neighbors is a major factor, you would almost always do a survey of the community, the street, the sizes of the house. You would present a graphic that would show that what you're proposing fits in with the neighborhood, it's not impairing the community. You would normally do that.
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. You're correct. One way to evaluate whether it fits or not is zoning compliance. Okay, that's why I went through that long list of things that we do meet. The zoning is what is established to protect the neighborhood. Once we got to this point where we realized we only had 14-foot setbacks to deal with off the one side, and we never minimized those setback variances. But there was no need to look further. This is what's permitted by zoning.
So, but Mr. Tobia, if you and I were just talking about the character of a neighborhood, you would not argue that maximizing every inch of the footprint of a house to build what you want would be the measure of the character of the neighborhood. You would give me the square footages of the 10 houses to the east and the 10 houses to the right, and you would say that, that's the average house size. You would not be saying maximizing the footprint under existing zoning would be the character of the neighborhood.
The answer is it depends. Okay, there are some homes in this area down near Armstrong that are every bit as big as this property, what's proposed. There are some, are smaller than what Mr. Ewing's proposing. And in the end, zoning's there, as as a police power. It's there to protect the neighborhood. Don't think, by the way, we maxed out on everything. We could have gone higher on this building, could have done more coverage. We could have built further into the backyard. We, in some indicators, did max out, such as building coverage. In others, we did not push it.
Thank you, Mr. Tobia. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Harrison, thank you.
Any other members of the public with questions? Mr. Wade, please give your name, identify yourself, where you live.
Richard Wade, 46 Springbrook Road. What is the approximate square footage of the house now?
4,900 square feet.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, now or proposed?
Now.
I think that's. Why don't you ask me another question? I'll look it up later.
What is the proposed square footage?
4,900 square feet.
And you would agree with me that house is larger than the average house in the neighborhood?
It's larger than some, comparable to others. The existing is 3,220, Mr. Wade.
Okay. And I believe in your testimony is the driveway would be moved over 3 feet to the east?
Roughly, yes.
And that would be to the seller's property, Ms. Seller's property to the east.
Right.
And by moving it over 3 feet, you're moving the driveway over closer to her house 3 feet.
Correct.
And would you agree with me that at present conditions, you could park 6 or 7 cars in that driveway?
If you stacked park
Yes,
them all
stack
the
them.
way down
Yes.
the driveway,
Mhm.
you probably could do that, yep.
Yeah, so if you had a party and you had cars stacked, you could stack 5 or 6 cars without going on the street, correct?
If stacked, yes.
Yes. Mhm. And at present, the garage is non-functional.
Yes.
And so for the last 30 or 40 years, this house has transferred ownership and it's been non-functional.
I'm sure people have made do somehow, some way with it. Small cars can get in there. But the standard module for that kind of garage is 24 by 24, 9-foot wide garage doors, 7 feet high. This doesn't have any of that.
And that's today's standards when this house was built 75 years ago.
more like 93, 94 years ago.
Yes. And you would agree with me, the cars in the 60s and 70s are larger than the cars are today, in most cases.
No, some of them were. I got an SUV that wouldn't fit in there if there was only one bay. So some were bigger, some were smaller.
And
We didn't have SUVs back then.
And to your knowledge, the applicant is the first one to try to increase the size of the garage.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. And could you go to, I think, slide 5, please?
That is slide 5.
I'm sorry?
That is slide 5.
Which
You
is
want to go to the other one? That was 7.
the 7 then?
Let's try 7.
No, the one, I'm sorry, which is the one with the house, the whole
You want the rendering?
rendering of the house?
Slide 10.
So I'm sorry, side 10, okay. Now, there's a door to the right of the garage? A glass door?
There's a man door. Is that what you mean?
Yes,
That's what you call those, yes.
and you walk in that and go upstairs?
You can go upstairs, and you can go straight into the dining room and loop around to the kitchen.
Okay. And we moved the garage 3 feet closer to Miss Seller's house, and then we decided to build a bedroom on top of it.
That's correct.
So if we just moved the garage out 3 feet and didn't put a bedroom on top, it would just be a single-story structure.
So as I said, there are a multitude of design options that could take place. This is the one before the board.
And most of these design options did not take into consideration the planning. Thank you.
Any other members of the public with questions? Ms. Nugent.
Leanne Nugent, 38 Springbrook Road. Since you have this slide up, there's been a lot of talk about vegetation on the east, but not on the west. And no accounting for the grade of that our property is at a higher elevation. In that rendering, there is still that large evergreen in the back corner. That was proposed by the landscape architect to be removed. Was it not?
That is shown on the landscape plan to remain. And what Ms. Nugent is talking about, tell me if I'm right, please. Let me try. What just happened?
Last slide.
All of the vegetation along the back right.
Hold on, Ms. Nugent, if you don't mind.
Yes.
This is the evergreen you're talking about, that long?
Yes.
cylinder? That's shown on the plan to remain. Okay.
The one that she had displayed, it was removed, but
Plan in the back corner says 6-inch tree to remain. And a lot of plant material coming up your common property line. Remember, board members, on this rendering, we did not add the proposed plant material because it would have hidden the building, and then, you wouldn't have seen too much.
there was, though, along there, trying to go to my photos from my property, that along that border, you mentioned the green giants, but that there was also the arborvitaes. And she claimed that she was going to keep it manicured at a 6-foot height. Now, a 6-foot height from Mr. Ewing's property, he's at a lower elevation. That's wonderful for his view. But from our elevation, much higher, that's not.
Hold on a second, please. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go back to the site plan, okay? What's going on here, let me just go through it with you carefully. Back near the pool, this is the southwest corner of the lot.
12 Green Giant plants are proposed along this property line. Green Giants are arborvitaes. It's just a,
I understand that.
okay. So 12 there, and you're correct. They were to be held at 6 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
She called that shearing,
Yes,
right? Just
she
flat
did.
top.
Yes.
Good. And then the big news for you is along the main body of the addition, the midsection of the lot next to you is where she proposed 5 Green Giants that you would let grow, planted at 15 feet high and going to 25 feet high. Okay,
Right.
hold on.
Go ahead.
Um,
And what
additionally,
about
in
the width of those?
Green Giant arborvitae?
The width gets wide. Is there even that room?
This room, what's shown on the plan is all on Mr. Ewing's side of the property. Not to mention, but, you know, a Green Giant that size is probably going to get, I don't know, 3 feet in diameter, maybe a little more.
I did research and I found much larger than that. You also mentioned that there would be a plan that if Mr. Ewing's vegetation, there would be a continuing vegetation replacement plan. Now, what about the impact on the root system of our trees along that property line? When these are all, everything else is taken out, I have 2, and there you can see them, established cherry trees that are, I don't know how old and how large. I have laurels that protect us. I have along our deck a large evergreen. We look down, we will be looking down on this patio and this pool. And what happens if my vegetation dies, if that's our fence gets disturbed? What kind of guarantees do we have on the west side with all of this upheaval?
Remember, when you look at your fence out in your yard, it's about 3 feet off the property line. It's 3 feet into your property. Then your plant material starts further inside. That means that those trees, the 3 circles that you're talking about, for the record, you have a 12, an 8, and a 12 running along that property line. They're probably 6 feet off the property line to begin with. Then the plant material Mr. Huff is going to add is going to be several feet inside the property line. Okay. I can't go through all this. She explained there are ways to plant these root balls to protect outside roots, and she's really skilled. She's going to do that.
What guarantees?
For you.
Because our root systems on these trees are extensive. What guarantees?
We'll let the board figure that out. Now, listen, I will tell you this. When Mr. Ewing spoke a year ago, when he testified, he said, I'm not a bad neighbor. Okay? He proposed conceptually, even planting on your property, planting on the seller's property to demonstrate he's not a bad neighbor. That never got off the ground, but the guy's going to do the right thing. If there's some way Mr. Aller can formulate a guarantee on that, we'll let you all handle it.
So we came home maybe 2 months ago to find Mr. Ewing's landscapers on our property, shearing our front holly trees, removing our ground cover, and it was making a hole between the privacy between our 2 front yards, and it was too late for us to stop it. I tried to contact, I left messages with Mr. Ewing's landscaper, who would not return my calls. And I have photos of this, but it was too late. I don't know what kind of relationship.
Mr. Chairman, now we're getting into testimony.
We are, but I think there's a question, she's asking about guarantees, and I think she's just backing up the question, so I'll let the witness answer it.
Never guarantee what a landscaper may do when not being.
Well, that's the problem she's addressing.
My
so-
relationship with my landscapers, multiple ones over 20 years,
I have
proof of that.
a great relationship with my landscaper because I do it myself.
Mine as well. Some other thoughts about, are we at the point that we can?
No, it's
I
not
still
testimony, it's
have
only
to
questions
be
right now.
Questions?
It's still questions.
Okay.
You have a chance at the end of all the
Okay.
all of the applicant's testimony for the public to present
Okay.
any testimony or any comments they wish to make.
So I still question the square footage because Mr. Dorn's, you say now 4,900 square feet. Mr. Dorn's assistant claimed that the whole property was, I'm getting to the right slide, I think it was, sorry. $6,916 square feet. There's nothing on these plans with total square footage. So being an engineer, I did my own calculations, adding square footage and doing square footage. I got 6,915. So I'm just questioning where the 4,900 square feet comes.
It's the heated living space in the house is 4,900. That other number, which I just checked, included garage space and basement space and got you up to, would you say 6,900?
So I removed garage space. And even if I remove the mechanic room, it's 6,824. So that's all heated. So that's my question, because there seems to be discrepancy in all of that.
I'm sorry, are you finished?
That-
These numbers they're not on the site plan, which is up on the monitor now. They are on the architectural plans. And the numbers were checked with Mr. Doran's office before I testified.
Mr. Hanson, is there, and also the tax record gives the existing home as 3,465 square feet, not 32. So that's a discrepancy. We keep coming back to the parking, and you keep claiming that there is no parking on the street. I just had friends over who parked on the street Friday night.
You gotta ask questions. not
Okay,
just testify.
has Mr. Ewing considered for parking similar to number 50, that's on 1.85 acres? They have parking that goes into the front yard. They brought a bay in for cars, so they do not have to be stacked on the driveway, and they have quite a bit more property. Has that been considered?
Well, no, and you just answered your own question. That's a big property compared to this one. Putting parking in front of this property would just be an architectural blight.
Well, I'm pointing out it's a big property and there are other areas for them to go too. And
This is not a big property. What'd you say, 50 Springbrook?
yes, and
1.3 acres?
1.85, and they brought the parking into the front yard.
This is, just so you know, this is a half an acre, this piece.
I know, it's less than that.
20,000 square feet. So it's much smaller than the one you're mentioning. We can't do that here.
Why not?
We'd be paving the front yard. We don't like doing.
You can bring, why not, right in front of the garage?
That's an answer. No. We have our plan.
Yes, it's a plan, but it could be done.
So, Ms. Nugent, you asked your question, and
Okay.
that's his answer.
Okay. All of the height statements that you have made have been from always measured to the dining room, like the bottom of the, from one addition to the dining room, never from the lowest point to the highest point, never really, because the addition A is half a story lower than the main house. Really, the entire structure, making the entire structure a 3.5-story home. And that, so all of your comparisons are always to that octagonal dining room.
Okay, let me clear that up. The ordinance requires height to be measured to the top of roof, which on this type of house means to the peak. Every one of the numbers I presented to the board before was measured from the peak.
Which peak? I'm sorry.
Well, each individual, let me go to the rendering again. Okay, can you see that? So each part of the house, as you know, has a different peak. So when we calculated it, we measured, and peak means the ridge, okay? We used each individual ridge on the additions and on the main house for a point of measure, consistent with the ordinance.
Isn't the ordinance a 3-story home, no larger?
Height is not regulated by number of stories.
But isn't there an ordinance in our town that regulates, because when we were looking at doing work on our house, existing structure, we were not going to change anything but put some dormers and make our attic a living space, and we could not without a variance because we have a walkout basement, because then it would be considered larger than 3 stories.
I can't,
So that's,
you want to show me the plans? I'll tell you what went wrong, Mr. Hanson. I don't know. It's hard to believe, Mr. Hanson.
Pardon, Dave, I didn't hear that.
He'll get back at me someday. Height
I said
in
it
the
was
zone.
before me.
Oh,
Her question was before I became zoning officer.
Height in this zone is measured in number of feet. 35 is the metric, 35 feet. And that's what my analysis was based on that number.
can we look into stories ordinance in the town?
well, that would be Mr. Oler and Mr. Hanson.
Thank you. Are arborvitae trees acceptable screening to pools?
Yes.
Because it was my understanding they are not.
We'll let you put on your testimony later, but my yes answer is because they grow so dense, they establish the privacy that we want, visual screen.
Yeah, Michael, let me just get back to, it's RA 15, correct?
Yes.
Yep, RA 15, building height is 35 feet.
So
Max.
what happens, just so everyone understands, if you look at all single-family zones, Mr. Aller, it's 35 feet. Number of stories is a control in many other zones in town.
Yeah.
Your townhouse zones, apartment zones, commercial zones do use number of stories as a control, just not the residential zones, single-family zones.
We were told next door on the other side of us was okay. They have a walkout basement, but it was okay that their attic was a living space. And we have only been here our renovation is not even 7 years old.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman,
height.
Yeah, can we-
Okay.
Yeah, and height is measured,
I'm not
different for
measuring
you
height, I'm
maybe
measuring
because it's-
stories.
Yeah, but it's not. The ordinance doesn't talk about stories. It only talks about 35 feet in height, and height is measured from the peak to all 4 corners and 20 feet out. So you might have more slope than he does, like, I don't know what the issue was.
Okay, it
but
was just
doesn't
stories. Okay.
Yep.
You keep talking about detriment, that there's no substantial impairment or detriment. You do not do you ever consider and mention the substantial detriment to the adjacent neighbors? And what this massive structure on a small piece of property, what kind of hardship has been presented that this is needed?
We have two
That's-
questions there, Mr.
Okay.
Well,
Break them down.
break them down,
one at a
please.
time.
One question at a time.
Substantial detriment is my question to neighbors. It has not been considered by you from what I have read here and what I have heard.
So, no, it's been considered thoroughly. The whole reason for our landscape plan is for the neighbors. The whole reason for the landscape plan is to provide buffering to the neighbors, soften the view of the homes from both sides and the pool and so on. And remember, in my line of work, the emphasis is on the word substantial, okay? The question for me in plain language is always, is it a really bad thing? Okay, are those two additions a really bad thing for the neighbors? My answer is no.
How is a 6-foot hedge, when I'm at such a higher elevation, a benefit to soften any view from me? It doesn't.
Okay, you're testifying.
I'm sorry.
You got to ask questions.
Does it? No.
Remember, it's not fair. The hedges go to 15 feet in certain strategic areas, to 25 feet in other areas, and down way in the back to 6 feet. That part's accurate. But we're talking about plant material here that's been designed, first of all, to be purchased oversized and selected because we know how aggressive they are as growers.
And to be manicured?
Well, remember the plan said shear this and shear that?
Mhm.
That would be Mr. Ewing's responsibility.
It would be better to grow. So then the other question is, now I've lost my train. With the two questions.
You asked what was the hardship?
Yes, what is the hardship? Thank you. What is really the hardship? And,
Ask the question. Can you please let him answer?
Yeah, you asked the question, you got to let
I'm
him
sorry.
answer.
So there is no claim of hardship here.
Okay, thank you. I had one last question. That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ewing.
Any other members of the public with questions?
So I just want to go back to that answer. So Michael, are you saying that there's no C1 variance
No,
request
now,
here?
remember, C1 does talk about hardship, Ms. Nugent's correct. It also talks about practical difficulty based on size, shape, narrowness of the property. And what we're saying is, from a practical standpoint, okay, how can an applicant meet nearly every single zoning control but one and be denied the use of his property? That, I'd assign more to the argument of practical difficulty. Be practical, okay? This guy has done a plan here that meets everything, importantly in height, kept height down, and strict application of that zoning standard on side yard would mean he can't do this proposal. Everyone, board members, would design this site and come up with a different plan. It's totally acknowledged. This is the plan. It's this guy's property. It's the applicant's property. This is what he's envisioned. And by the way, we don't want to muddy the waters here, but we really chopped this thing up. We gave it a big haircut from the beginning of the project on both sides. There was an office addition going in on the west side of this that would have taken down the old office, built a new one, got resistance from the board and the public, and we eliminated it. Okay? And the two additions that were just spoke about by Ms. Nugent were once 5 feet off. Well, the back one was 5 feet off the property line. It's too much. So we
Okay.
moved it all the way back to 14 feet. So we've done a lot here to address the neighborhood.
Board members, based upon questions from the public, any more questions? Mr. Hanson, any questions? Oh, wait a minute, there's one more person wishing to ask questions.
Thank you.
Oh, there's a couple more, sorry. Joan, can you give us your name, please?
My name is Joan Ferrari. I live at 6 Spring Hill Lane. I have a couple of questions. One is, what is the purpose of a setback in your vernacular?
So, yeah, the idea is so that homes don't get too close together and create crowding and shadow effect and things like that.
Are there any fire regulations or fire considerations? Some communities have regulations where you've got to have enough clearance for fire equipment to go between the houses and whatnot.
Access, the only fire code requirement I know is that houses like this can't be within 5 feet of the property line. In which case, fire-resistant windows and doors are required and things like that. In terms of access, fire access, and this is a little bit far afield from what I do for a living, but there's no real concern here. Fire is going to be fought from the street onto the property. Meaning fire trucks are not driving down this driveway to the back of the house.
Really?
Really?
Okay. That sounds strange. Then I'm confused about the egress to the parking area that you've put as the second level. Is that addition A?
Yes, and the part.
Because what I remember was a pool house and there were 3 levels. And so and I don't remember that it was so connected with the ground level, that second level was so connected with the ground level. Can you tell me what that egress is now?
So the garages, as you might imagine, are built right at the grade of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Because the cars have to get
Right.
in and out. In the back, there's a basement level underneath the garage
Right.
that you cannot see from the illustration up, which is slide 10. That's because it's underground.
Is that the same grade level as the pool house first level?
The so-called pool house is at that level, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what would happen, and it's not a pool house, okay? It's a room in a basement with some furniture, kitchenette, and pool house equipment. Put the pool house equipment inside so it wouldn't make noise for the neighbors. That's one level down, and that's the level where the pool would be built. So you'll come out that basement level, walk to the pool.
Right. But what is the parking in that area then?
No parking back there. Parking's one level above that.
But where? That's what I'm asking. What's the egress to that parking level? Where is it? I'm completely confused.
Yeah, that's right. We'll get you through it. Look at the slide that's up on the monitor now. Springbrook Road's off to your right, okay? So you would come down the driveway, and if you can see my pointer right about there, you would get into this garage through the garage door.
Yeah.
To the right of it is a man door, right? That just means a door you open by hand, you go in. And then the other garage, which is at the back of the front addition, addition B, would have 2 garage doors. They're not in the illustration now. But
Okay.
you would also get in back there through the 2 other garage doors.
Okay. So the parking egress is on the other side.
Of the front building, the front
Okay.
addition.
Okay. Well, that clears it up a little bit. Thank you. Then in some past testimonies, it was testified that I don't know what to call it, it was a pool house at that time, but it was connected, it actually was an extension of the main house and was connected with a passageway. Has that changed?
No, that is accurate.
Okay, so that's still,
There's a staircase that would allow you to walk upstairs. Everything.
that
What I said
side has
before.
all stayed the same?
It's all stayed the same. The idea is to get people in and out of the house in a modern fashion, meaning you wouldn't have to walk out of the garage, go outside, get your keys out, go back in your front door. That's all been eliminated by this plan. The problem of getting in and out of the house through the garage is now fixed by a plan that has interior connections from the garages to the house.
Okay, so the connection to that outside building, that extension of the house is still that single passageway?
By passageway, if you mean the little bridge connector, you're correct. Yep.
Okay, that's not changed. That's the same as it has been, right?
Long ago, that might have been a bit longer. It's been so many months, but the same idea is there, that it connects from the garage through to the dining room.
I just date back to the last meeting.
Oh, no, it was the same then. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. And then do you know how many other homes, this is a half-acre lot, or maybe even a tiny bit less. Do you know how many other homes of this size are on half-acre lots?
We have not looked at that.
Is that something that you would consider doing?
Um,
Or
Yeah.
would,
No, listen, I think what I said before is the fact that we're so compliant with zoning means we can build a house of this size, okay? In other cases, in more complex cases, I'd go and study a neighborhood. But this fits on the site. And we're confident with what's now finally been designed as appropriate for the property.
it just appears to me, looking at I can see that one, I can't see this one.
It's the same one.
It looks as though it just fills up the lot, that there's so little clearance on either side that it just fills the lot up. So if you were doing an architectural model of it, was that done at all? Do you know?
Illustrations like this have been done by Mr. Ewing's architect for a year.
But did he do a three-dimensional
Oh, I don't know the answer.
construction of any kind?
I don't know the answer.
Okay. Let me think. Okay, a lot of my questions were connected because I didn't understand that egress. Then I had asked the last time that whether there was a definition of residence. If a building has utilities, has kitchen, has bathroom, has public space, and easy entrance, is that a residence? Has the board done any kind of search on that for me?
You want me to read the definition? Is that?
Sure.
Do you have it?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good. Last time no one did.
Okay, so this is the definition of one-family dwelling.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and all it says is a building occupied or intended for occupancy exclusively for one family or one household with direct access from the outside, and further provided that cooking, sleeping, and sanitary facilities for the exclusive use of the occupants of the unit.
And this is in fact one building, correct?
It says one building, one household. Yep.
So how does this not qualify, this pool house or whatever it's called now, how does that not qualify as a residence?
First of all, board members, remember, I wasn't on this when it first got started. This thing down on the basement level never should have been called a pool house. Pool house is a separate structure out near a pool. We call them cabanas. And they are separate buildings devoted to pool use. This is a single room in a basement that happens to be at the level of the pool and is mighty handy for providing a shower, sitting area, changing area, and importantly, putting all the pool equipment inside the building. You won't hear the pool equipment because it's inside the building. It's a basement. It's a room in a basement. So it's not a pool house that's just a label on the plans. And there was some concern about this being a separate apartment.
Right.
It's illegal. Mr. Ewing's not going to do it. No one's living down there because we have 4 bedrooms upstairs where people are going to stay as his family members and his friends. And it's just a support room for the pool.
So the other part, the other levels of that building are going to really be attached to the house.
This whole house is one continuous building. Everything's attached.
Okey doke. And then, what's the square footage of the roofing?
Of the who?
Of the roofs? What's the total square footage of the roofing? Roofing?
The roof?
The total roofs, yeah. 5,000 square feet, 6,000 square feet, 700,000 square feet.
If you're talking about the size of the house, I gave those numbers before. As proposed, we're at about 4,900 square feet.
No, I'm just asking what the square footage of the roofing is, not,
We don't know that answer.
Okay.
It's funny you asked that. I've never heard that question before, ever.
oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. You mean
I
the
know
area of
mine.
all those peaks and all that? Is that what you want?
No, just how much roofing, what's the square footage of the roofing? That's all. Never mind.
I just don't
It's
know.
all right, it's irrelevant.
You got me. I don't
Since
know.
nobody knows it, it's got to be irrelevant. All right, and then the last thing is the total percentage of coverage on the lot.
Um,
I think you had that.
No, I got it. It's 42.18%. 42.18%.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your questions.
Thank you for the definition of a resident.
While the next person's coming up, Mike, to put that in perspective, what's the permitted?
It's 45% and 42.18 is proposed, so we're light by almost 3 percentage points.
Okay.
You have your name, please?
Gloria Karsten, Karsten, 9 Springbrook, I'm sorry, I forgot where I live, 9 Spring Hill Lane. My question is, in our area, in the Springbrook area, can you tell us approximately how many houses have all their bedrooms en suite?
I cannot.
I would suspect it is less
No,
than
that's
5%.
testimony. You can ask questions.
Okay, can anybody, okay, I would like that researched because the premise here is that that is one of the major improvements, which is clearly a luxury improvement.
Okay,
that
that's
the
a
applicant
statement
used.
also. You got to ask a question in there.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
You have to ask a question. You're making statements.
Okay. What justifies the addition of all these luxury amenities rather than need to have amenities so that we should approve these zoning variances?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to object to that question. There's nothing in the zoning ordinance or in the municipal land use law that distinguishes between luxuries and non-luxuries, garden
I'm
variety.
going to let him answer it. I know it's been asked before, but you can answer the question.
I'm going to move in the same direction. We are not trying to justify this project by luxury. Be clear, there are luxurious houses in this neighborhood. That's why it's the Springbrook neighborhood. Okay. A couple members of the public have characterized this and that as luxurious. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. The rationale for the variances is not dependent on luxury, which is a totally arbitrary term anyway when it comes to zoning.
Okay. But do the luxuries warrant the encroachment on the other neighbors? That's my question.
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. The site geometry warrants it. The way the applicant has laid out the buildings warrants it. Proposed landscaping warrants it, and the building height warrants it, not luxury.
Okay, and again, my last question, the overall question is, it's been acknowledged that the property is already grandfathered and is currently violating numerous variances. why, given what we've discussed, should any more variances be given?
That's beyond his scope. He's already testified about what the reasons why underneath the land use laws as to why he says it's proposed and should be
Okay.
accepted. We're not going to have a whole debate about land use laws and their history.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, your name.
Jack Benvent, Armstrong Road,
Please spell that, please.
Benvent. I just have one quick question. It was triggered by one of the comments before. The width of the house seems to be what we're talking about here, and she was asking about the fire equipment and everything. As a more practical matter, as somebody who lives in the neighborhood, the landscapers, the pool people, the people have to come every day and do work. Is there going to be enough room for them? Especially when you have green giants. And what may happen is the landscapers who come by once a week are going to take their large tractors, and they're not going to be against this man's house. They're going to be underneath the windows of the people who live next door. Is that something that's considered? The noise,
So
the fumes?
Let him answer
all
the
that stuff?
question.
I'm sorry.
landscapers are used at seemingly every house in the neighborhood. There are a few do-it-yourselfers, like the chairman.
Right.
They park on the street. They'll do the same thing here. The driveway is a standard 10-foot wide driveway leading into the house.
Does it go into the back though? Can you get?
Yes, oh yeah. Go all the way into the back, and, smaller vendors and contractors will be able to use Mr. Ewing's driveway, just like every other house in the neighborhood. So we see this all the time. Landscapers will typically park on the other side of the street. And it's just like the street I live in. You slow down, it goes to single lane, and people share the road. The answer to the question is Mr. Ewing's going to maintain this just the way everybody else does.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure there's a place for them to go. Because I'm looking, when I look on the picture here, to my eyes, it looks, and maybe I'm not reading it correctly. They'd have to go around the house and down the slope. Is that correct?
So, yeah, if they came down the street, if you can follow my pointer, slide 10, they would come straight down the driveway on the easterly side of the house into this little courtyard in the back, do their business, do their work. See my pointer right there?
Yep.
And then they would exit. The way this is designed, no one should be pulling out of this driveway in reverse. Everyone's going out.
But I mean, the actual tractors have to go around the other side over here, no?
Well,
yes, and that's what they do every time.
That's what they do now. But the house is going to be
Okay,
wider now. so it'll be less-
Mr. Ewing, let the witness answer. You're not under oath, right?
And I'm just looking for
Otherwise, we're going to be
clarification. I'm not-
cross-examining you all night, so. let the-
The answer is yes. That's what they do now. That's what they'll continue to do.
But there'll be less room?
No,
No?
no. There's a driveway on the left side of this house right now. And there'll be the same amount of room on the street for parking. And basically, they're going to operate just the way they do now.
Ms. Brandon, can you repeat your address, please?
14 Armstrong.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members of the public? Yes, sir.
Couple quick questions. My name's Bill Robinson, 9 Spring Hill Lane, and I'm basically want to build off of 2 questions that were made before. One, to answer the question that was just made, could we see the plan, the plan, not the drawings? Because that would show where the tractors and stuff could go.
Is that what you want, Mr.
Yeah,
Robinson? Go.
so his point was, it doesn't look like there's enough room between the property lines for tractors to go. Am I right? Is that what your comment was? Yeah, so maybe you could use your pointer and just show us how that works.
So, Springbrook Road is at the bottom of the plan here.
Right.
Okay, we're talking to the site plan now. On the easterly side of the house, exactly where it is now, is a driveway that services Mr. Ewing's property. It runs north to south along the east side of the property, and any equipment of a smaller nature is going to come down that driveway to do whatever they do, landscaping and maintenance. Larger vehicles, just like every other house on the street, going to park on the street and bring their smaller equipment onto the site.
But the point is, it looks like going to the end of the driveway, there's a wall. You're not going.
That's my point.
See, that's the thing.
backyard with. Mike, on the right-hand side, how much space is there between property line and that long
This wall here?
office addition?
No, right
Not
side,
left.
right side, Mike. How do you?
Taking into, just, can I ask one, just taking into account the proposed landscaping there?
Right, exactly.
So the setback, first of all, is 15.4 feet from the existing office bump out shown thus on slide, or on the site plan to the property line.
Well, Michael, I think you go down to 13.3 at that wall further back.
You go back in the back along the pool, what does that say?
So the back and the setback in the back is 20.8 feet and a 6-foot adjustment for the staircase, so that's about 14 feet.
Well, it says 13.3, and then how do you adjust for the landscaping?
You're saying 13.3 to the wall in the back?
Right. From the property line, because I don't think that's measured from the fence. It's the property line to that wall.
I got you.
Right, it's 13.3. So
Gotcha.
you have to subtract out whatever the spacing is for the fence. That might just be 6 inches. And then, the real question is you're putting in substantial landscaping down that row. So how wide would that be?
That scales to approximately 5 feet down that back line. And I don't know if we've gotten the landscaping that yet. That might just be a lawn condition back there, or it might be something we do back there that doesn't
Right, but you'd
require.
have about 8 feet to bring a lawn tractor down that row.
Yeah.
Right.
And the fact is, whatever it is, they're going to have to equipment back there. If somebody has to push a lawnmower back there, 2.5 feet wide or 3 feet wide, that's what they're going to have to do.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, second question, building off of Mrs. Ferrari's comment, she was asking about the roof area. I want to ask that slightly differently. The footprint of the roofed property, if you will, the square footage of the covered property, what is that amount?
Building coverage.
The building, there you go, building
Well,
coverage.
that's easy.
Yeah, I know.
That's on the site plan, down at the bottom, Mr. Robinson, and it is 3,987 square feet.
Okay, and how does that compare with other houses on the same street?
That has not been studied.
Okay,
3,000.
should it be, or?
So that number is under what's permitted by zoning.
Mhm.
Slightly, but it's under. It's not a variance condition.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public with questions? If not, close the public portion. Do you have any other witnesses?
No, I don't have any other witnesses, but maybe 2 or 3 follow-up questions.
Oh, sure.
There's been questions about the size of the house, Mike. Are there any metrics or controls within the zoning ordinance that limit the size of a house? Can't be over so many square feet or some other method?
No.
There was also questions regarding the view of the pool. Is there any requirement that you know of that requires that a pool be screened from neighbors?
No, what happens with pools is they have to meet the setbacks of homes in the zone, okay? Which means 20 feet from side yard, 25 feet from the back. In this case, the pool meets all those. In fact, on the easterly side, the pool setback is twice what's required by the zone. In the back, it's roughly 50% more than what's required by the zone. So the pool's fully compliant and buffered.
And so if I was to pull a permit for a fully compliant pool, there's no requirement I screen it at all, is it? I have to put a fence around it for safety.
Correct, you're gonna have to get a zoning permit from Mr. Hanson. In that scenario, the applicant would not be coming before this board.
And there was some comments made both in prior hearings and tonight about the garage and that it was built in the 1930s and it seemed to be okay. Is that how planners look at things that were built 80 or 90 years ago, when tastes and styles and requirements and everything.
Things change. Real estate's a dynamic field. Home ownership's a dynamic field. Some people, like Mr. Ewing, buy a house thinking they're going to fix it up. They want to fix it up. Old improvements like that garage, which is, now might have been a great idea 80 years ago. It's just terribly antiquated and would be best if it was completely rebuilt.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Board members, any other questions? Mr. Hanson, any questions?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tobier was my only witness for tonight.
All right. Counsel,
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
I understand you had two proposed witnesses that are not here tonight?
Correct. Yeah. So, Mr. Chairman, I don't know how late the board normally goes. I know there's other neighbors who probably want to give testimony. I intend to call my client and give some fairly structured testimony. I tend to move pretty quickly. So if we came back, if I could present Ms. Sellers at an upcoming meeting, I would present her and the two witnesses, and I suspect that I'll be an hour-ish.
Okay, so as far as members of the public, you wish to reserve until the next meeting because it's 20 to 10 now. But we could take other members of the public who may wish to testify. Is that?
I'd frankly like Mr. Chairman to finish tonight. We've got a year.
Well, Dave, we end at 10 and it's 20 to 10. And just based on the cross-examination, I don't think we're going to get through the
Well, then
public
if we're going
tonight,
to
much less Mr. Urson.
End up having to go over into hopefully January. I'd like to at least then follow the lead and at least have other members of the public go through their testimony.
Yeah, I think we could start the public.
I think we can start the public, yes.
Break first?
Yes. You want a 5-minute break?
No.
Okay.
Nice.
No break. Let's go.
So do you wish to have do you need a 5-minute break?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Mr. Goldberg,
Here.
Mr. Trachtenberg,
Here.
Ms. Simmons. Here. Mr. Schuster,
Here.
Mr. Benoit,
Here.
Mr. Kramer,
Here.
Mr. Woodford,
Here.
Mr. Oler,
Here.
Mr. Hanson,
Here.
and I, Sonia, Ms. Polara, okay, and I, Sonia Santiago here.
All right. Okay, any members of the public who wish to testify on this application, please form a line by the microphone. Mr. Wade,
That's Art.
you're up.
All right, Richard Wade, 46 Springbrook Road, Morris Township.
So, Mr. Wade, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
I have lived in the Springbrook neighborhood for some 15 to 18 years. And there's a reason why I live there. It's because of the character of the neighborhood. I've lived in the township for many more years. I've lived on Eagle Nest, which are much newer homes, much bigger homes. And yet the values of the two neighborhoods are almost the same. And that's because Springbrook, being smaller, but being treed and being who it is or what it is a special place to live. It's not the McMansion type of neighborhood. It's not the neighborhood where you build to the lot lines. You build 10,000 square foot homes. You go to Harding Township, you go to Mendham, you go to Basking Ridge. Springbrook is a small community. It's well knit. It's a community of homes on roughly anywhere from, say, a little less than a half acre to 2 or 3 homes that have over an acre. It is Springbrook itself. This would be the most outrageous development on the street. There is not a house on Springbrook that would match this particular house in its intensity. The biggest house on the street is number 50, which is on an acre and a half plus. It is spread out. This house is on one of the smaller lots. It was built some 75 to 100 years ago. It's set up in such a way that it fits into the neighborhood exactly as it is. Whitewashed brick front. It is 3,000 square feet. It has a two-car garage, which almost every house in Springbrook has. The original development called for two-car garages in the back, which this house has. This house has a two-car garage that has been functional for some 50 years. It is not appropriate to say it's a non-functional garage. People have lived there for all these years, families, and yet one person moves in 2 or 3 years ago and says the garage is non-functional. I question the merit of that statement. In addition to that, he's moving the driveway over 3 feet. By that, it makes it 3 feet closer to Ms. Sellers' home, which is the next door neighbor, which is the lower side of the street. We have a situation where not only is the driveway 3 feet over, but we have a situation where the plantings that are there now are going to be destroyed. And even so, those plantings on the seller's property, because the root system, obviously, on what properties are tied together. Not only is the applicant saying that the garage would be extended 3 feet, he now takes the position that he's going to build on top of that extended 3-foot garage. And now he's going to put an ensuite bedroom up there and a bathroom. If you listen to the testimony, it's almost as if this house is falling apart. This is a house that was bought some 2 or 3 years ago for some $1.2 million. It is a functional house, as I'm sure the testimony will be forthcoming on behalf of Ms. Sellers, that this house was in pristine condition. The master bedroom has an ensuite. It has a beautiful backyard, as you've seen. It's a beautiful house. It fits right into the neighborhood. It's a typical house. It's unfortunate that this gentleman wants to build a house that doesn't belong in this neighborhood. The style of the house doesn't fit the neighborhood. It fits somewhere else, but it doesn't fit in that neighborhood. It screams out against the rest of the neighborhood. Most of these houses are 75 years old. There's architecture in this neighborhood. There's trees in this neighborhood. And that's what's supposed to be set forth. And that's why Springbrook is Springbrook. Now, Ms. Sellers' lot being next door is directly impacted. To say that there's a situation where we can do whatever we want in our backyard, but you can't see it from the street, so it doesn't count. Well, Ms. Sellers lives there, and she sees it. Nugents live on the other side. They see it. They're affected. There's 2 neighbors that are affected. That's not right. One person's, shall we say, greed, which is maybe too strong a word, but intuition to build their dream house on an inappropriate lot, that's a detriment. That's a detriment to the neighborhood. As I'm sure the testimony will bring out, Ms. Sellers' property is much lower than Mr. Ewing's property. So in her backyard, her patio, looking at this new project, she's going to see a 3-story building. You have the pool room, the garage, and then you have a living accommodation above it. So she's going to be sitting in her backyard, and she's going to have a structure that's well past the actual structure of the main house and into the backyard. So she's going to be being looked down upon, not only from that angle, but also from the angle of the garage, because now we've moved a bedroom some 20 feet closer to her property. So there's an impact on that property. Now, the applicant's obviously he's a man of goodwill. I've met him. He's intent. He's serious about doing this. But unfortunately, he picked the wrong place, the wrong time to do this. This property is overdeveloped and should this application not be approved. Now, when we get to the landscaping on both sides, the arborvitaes are not appropriate as far as screening is concerned, shearing. The neighborhood, the 2 neighbors are going to be faced with one looking down with 6-foot sheared trees and the other one looking up. And then she's going to see that skyline of a property in her backyard. There is no other view like that in Springbrook. This is a one of a kind. This is an anomaly. and the board should deny the application. Thank you.
Board members, any questions of this witness?
I have
Mr.
no
Brady,
question.
any
I have no questions, Mr. Wood.
Mr. Hanson, any questions? No. Okay. Any other members of the public wish to testify?
Leanne Nugent, 38 Springbrook
Only one
Road.
of you at a time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So Ms. Nugent, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
I've been dying to do this because everybody's given their credentials from all the witnesses. So I have a bachelor's and a master's in engineering from Brown University. I teach pre-calculus, algebra 2, geometry. I coach the only all-female robotics team in New Jersey. So those are my credentials that I have a technical background. So when I'm doing calculations, I swear by when I'm looking at the plans and my calculations. We have lived in 5 homes throughout our marriage. We have renovated many homes. We expanded and renovated a home on Shalebrook Drive in Harding that was 7,000 square feet. It was on 4 acres, not on less than half an acre. We moved to this home in this neighborhood for a reason. For the neighborhood having a smaller home, we have 5 children. Some of them are grown. They come back, 5 fit in our little 3,400 square foot home, which we completely renovated when we moved to this town. And we respected when we were told certain restrictions and did not expand. We respected our neighbors and the character of the neighborhood. Our garage also is small. It is in the back. We have troubles with turning radiuses. We have 5 children who drive and bring their cars, and we make it work in our small piece of property in our driveway. All of the witnesses have talked about the home, Mr. Ewing's home's bad condition. When we moved here, that home was in pristine condition. I was in the home when it was on the market. I went to it to go to the open house. There was nothing wrong with it. We have witnessed in 2.5 years the dilapidation because it's neglect that we've witnessed for the home. You can go and drive by and see the shutters are falling off the front of the house. We sit on our little deck and we listen to the rattling. I even have a videotape of the AC unit that we listen to because my daughter and I sit and do work together on the deck. And that's what we have. He doesn't repair it. So our old contractor is the one, Wayne Nolting, who did that addition. All of the railings, everything was custom made. He was so excited when we moved to this house and said, oh, you're next door to what I did next door. Mr. Ewing only just started to do some landscaping. And it's in the front of the yard. And then all of a sudden I find a landscaper on our yard. My holly is gone. And I do make my own pots and cut my holly. My neighbor on the other side just told me, come pick my holly, since I don't have holly anymore, because all the berries and everything's been sheared off. So it's the kind of relationship that has already developed. In our backyard, the weeds, and I take care of my yard. I use natural vinegar to kill my weeds. The weeds are growing into my yard because there hasn't been mulch back on his yard. And a major concern for us is our property value. That if I'm looking down, now Maggie has to look up. We are looking down to a party scene, a patio, a huge patio that has the covered roof and the fireplace. The steps, they're not breaking any variances, but they're right 13.3 feet from our property line. And that's the way everybody is going to go down from the patio to the pool. We have a pool. We don't have any lighting. I string a couple of little lights out at our pool. We don't even have lights in our pool. And we are respectful of our neighbors. And who's going to want to buy the house that we have worked so hard on? It's wonderful. It's a beautiful architectural design, but on less than half an acre in this neighborhood where there's a home down the street that just changed hands on 1.85 acres, and it's in the 4,000 square foot range. We lived in a large home on 4 acres. This home would be beautiful on 4 acres, would meet all of Mr. Ewing's needs. It's out of place in our neighborhood, and we respected the town's restrictions, and we didn't push the limit. We renovated. Our family squeezes in for holidays. Thank you.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Brady, any
No
questions?
questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to testify?
It's after 10.
We'll go on for a few minutes.
Okay.
He's very sick, by the way.
Oh, okay.
He was staying home. He just got out of bed.
Yeah.
Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I
And your
do.
name, please, for the record?
Anthony Nugent, 38 Springbrook Road.
Thank you.
I've heard from Mr. Ewing's lawyer, his architect, his planner, saying how he's concerned about his neighbors in his design of the house. About a year ago, Maggie Sellers came to me and said, I had a meeting with Mr. Ewing and Dick Wade, and Mr. Ewing told me that you and Leanne are all in on this project. Never said it. How? You said it, correct?
Well, that's just, you're testifying,
Okay.
you're not asking questions.
Okay. He said it. So how do I, so Mr. Oley asked about landscaping for a year. What happens after that? So a man that lied to my neighbors, I'm going to have to, what, get a lawyer to have landscaping done? As Leanne said, we moved here because it's a very quiet neighborhood, less property, to smush basically what, a 6,000 square foot home onto how many acres? What is it, 0.42?
Less than half.
Right, less than half. There's no other home in the neighborhood that is this proposed size unless a half acre. Mr. Goldberg asked the $1 million question a couple of months ago, I think to Mr. Dorn. Is this project too big for the property? Of course it is. As Leanne said, you know, our property values, you know, to live next door to monstrosity, that's going to hurt us financially. I just don't understand why someone says he wants to be good to his neighbors is doing this. Pardon me? Oh, the hardship that you can't park your car, as Leanne said, we worked with our driveway and garage. I mean, I don't know. And then what Mr. Dorn said, that the 3.5-story structure of Maggie Sellers property will be used 10% of the time. It's a little absurd. So, all right.
Any board, just, Mr. Newton, gonna wait for a second. Board members, any questions? Mr. Brady, any questions?
No question.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to testify at this time? Okay, so you're gonna wait, Counselor, you're gonna wait, put your client on and your two witnesses the next meeting, is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Wait a minute, I just see somebody
Are
behind.
we ending or, I mean, 'cause
The public is going to be done except for Mr. Urson, because there's no other member of the public here asking to
Testify.
Okay, well, all right, can I make a comment then? I mean.
Yes, you can. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah, okay,
That's
I
right.
hate to keep people over, but now's my chance to speak my piece or whatever.
Yes, you gotta be sworn in.
Again, Bill Robinson, 9 Spring Hill
Mr.
Lane.
Robinson, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you'll give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So help you God. Thank you.
So,
Your address again?
9 Spring Hill Lane.
Thank you.
Okay. I've been in this neighborhood for, I don't know, 33 years, something like that. So I guess I qualify as an old timer. But I still remember very clearly the first time I ever saw the neighborhood. My wife and I were looking for a house, newly married. And a realtor called us up and said, a house just came on the market in this great neighborhood. You've got to come and see it. Okay. So we came and looked, and I remember I was amazed that there could be a neighborhood like this so close to the downtown of a reasonably sized city, and yet it was so, I mean, bucolic. Okay, there were trees, there were mature plantings, hills, and I remember thinking that the houses looked modest, but they're not modest in a sense of being humble, because many of them are very beautiful homes, but modest in the sense of fitting into their lots, fitting into the landscape. And in contrast with some neighborhoods, maybe where a house is like an advertisement of somebody's status or wealth or position or whatever, and it's right out there in your face. In Springbrook, they aren't. They're more, they fit into the landscape. So I fell in love with the place. We bought our house, and as I say, we've been there ever since. Over the years, I've seen a lot of changes in the neighborhood, and change is good. And as houses have turned over, I've gone to open houses, and I've probably seen close to half of the houses in the neighborhood. You see bumped out kitchens, you see wraparound decks, you see media rooms. Fantastic. Because a lot of these houses are older houses. They were built in the 20s and 30s and 40s, and they don't really meet the needs of people today. So a lot of residents have said, we're going to invest, we're going to, make the house more functional for us, and that's wonderful. In so doing, they increase the value of the home to themselves, and they also increase the value of the neighborhood. Excellent. But in recent years, I've seen something different, and that is people moving into the neighborhood and wanting to change the ground rules. And I say people moving into the neighborhood because it isn't the residents who've been in the neighborhood for 10 years, 12 years. These are people who move in, and after a year or so, they say, okay, nice neighborhood here. I like it a lot. I'm attracted to it, but I just want to change some rules for my property. Okay? And that's what, there are some examples I could mention. I won't, because there might be people whose houses I would be talking about, but there's a perfect example of a house development that was proposed that never happened. And that was the one that we've talked about at other meetings at the end of Armstrong Road and the golf course. It was an oversized lot with a house. Developer came in and say, nice neighborhood you got here. I just want to improve it a little bit. I'm going to take this oversized lot, I'm going to cut it in half, and I want to build 2 oversized houses on those 2 spaces. And that was a kind of a signal to me, because I could see our neighborhood was under threat. And I've seen this in some other proposals too, where there are people wanting to change the rules, chip away at what the neighborhood is, just for my property, just a little bit, just my thing. But that isn't the way it works. And that is what turned me into an activist. And I am not an activist. But I now have a spot in the pew over here, kind of like in my church, where I'm at a lot of the meetings. And because I feel passionately about the neighborhood. And as Mr. Wade has said, and others too, I value the fact that it is a little smaller. It's a little less imposing. It's modest. It's not humble, but it's not in your face. And I sense that is under threat. There's always pressure from people wanting to move in and being attracted by what we were all attracted. All of our neighbors were attracted, but they want to change it. Just for my property, I just want to do a little thing. But enough of that happens, in 5 years from now, Springbrook ain't going to be Springbrook. Okay, it's going to be something else. And people are going to walk around and say, what was it was supposed to be so special about Springbrook anyway? So that brings me to the concern about Mr. Ewing's proposal. I don't know him personally. I'm sure he's a wonderful man. And the property design, I mean, he found a very talented architect and a very skilled architect who understands his craft well. But what is being proposed really just doesn't fit into the fabric of what I'm describing. And it goes beyond zoning. It's the culture, I don't know what, but it's the sort of thing that you can't say, well, it broke this rule, so you can't do it. But in fact, in this case, it's already a violation of variances, and we're looking to expand that. So that's an issue right there. But it just doesn't fit in the neighborhood, and that's my concern. So, thank you.
Board members, any questions?
Can I have one more little comment?
No, just a second. Mr. Robinson, you got to come back down to this for 1 second.
Okay.
Board
I'm
members,
ready.
any questions of Mr. Robinson? Mr. Brady, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Now you can.
No, now I can go. Okay.
Now somebody else wants to testify, I believe. Ms. Nugent, you've had your opportunity to testify.
Wanted to make one comment.
Julia Winter, 210 Mount Kimball,
Can you spell your last name?
Winter. I was hoping this was going to go on next month so my husband could
Would
speak.
you raise your right hand,
Oh.
please? Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you will give to this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
And your address again, please?
210 Mount Kimball Ave.
Thank you.
And I consider myself part of the Springbrook community as well, because of my house is as close to the pond as anyone can get and the fireworks. And I've been in the neighborhood for 41 years. And it was the Springbrook community which brought me here. And I just wanted to point out that our joint Morris Township Library also feels that it's a pretty unique special community. They have it featured on a display at the library, and it reads Springbrook to be developed shortly as an exclusive park will be one of the best residential developments anywhere in the state. So I guess this was back in the 1930s. And as Bill was saying, if we keep giving inch, it's no longer going to be the special community that was planned back in the 30s. So that's all I have to say.
Okay.
And I don't want to say why we have to give variances, just scale it down. It is a beautiful house, just don't make it so big.
Board members, any questions? Mr. Brady, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Any other members of the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, hearing none, close the public portion except for what's going to be a next meeting. Right, so that's going to finish it up for tonight. Ms. Santiago, what do we have?
January 27th.
Okay, so Mr. Urson, is January 27th, do you know your witnesses are available?
Yes.
Okay. So for members of the public, this hearing is being adjourned. Currently, it will continue on January 27th, 2025 in this room at 7 p.m. There'll be no further notices from the applicant.
Do we know,
Do we?
We need an extension.
If you want-
Yes,
if you need it, you have it, and if you want to check with me, I'll send you an email.
yes, please.
Can I just ask a procedural question?
Do we know if we're going, is that
So
calendar?
there, yeah, so I can tell you the January calendar has 2 C variances on it. There, it's obviously the reorg meeting and 2 Cs. All of that together will probably take about an hour, so you should have about 2 hours at that meeting, plus or minus.
Any way we could be first, because we're C variances also.
Right.
Yeah.
Except you're going to take 2 hours and they're probably going to take 15 minutes each. So,
We'll see where we are. Sometimes things change.
January 27th, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock, yep.
Can I just ask a clarifying question, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So for the purposes of the public testimony that we just heard this evening, because I heard Ms. Winter say she'd wished that it carried it over to next month so her husband could see, but there will be no more, the public portion of the testimony is closed. There will not, so if there's attendees next session that want to speak, that opportunity is sort of, it's possible.
It's possible.
Okay, thank you.
But, yes, we do have public members, so we have the counsel and his client and their 2 witnesses.
Yeah, and, Mr. Urson, as I mentioned to you before, if your witnesses have any reports, would you produce them in advance?
Yeah.
So, Mr. Oliver, we did submit our exhibits by email.
You have?
You have to send?
I have to check my flash drive.
I have the email, but we can resend it.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
One of the
you.
reports is in the exhibit, so I can find
Okay.
out when it's ready. I'll find out.
Okay,
All right, great, thanks.
okay, thank you.
All right. Any other business, board members? If not, a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion, meeting adjourned.